Well, hello everyone. Yeah, we decided not to do an intro tonight. Obviously, it's today's not quite the day that we expected. It's if it's particularly if you're living in Britain today, it's a bit of a shit day that the Queen has passed away, and yeah, man, we debated whether or not we should like postpone the show or sack it off or do something different, and we decided there's people waiting. Everyone kind of knows about it, and I guess it just made more sense to go ahead and do it. But yeah, here we are, and well, I'm joined by Molar, obviously, as always, my co-hosts. Hello, sir.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah, it's just a reality that deserves acknowledgement. We're both people who, by the time we were taking our first breath, she was, well into her career, if you will, and it's just a consistent element of culture that's this. It's just a shock and a surprise. There's been plenty of sort of commentary and jokes about how she'll be there forever. But of course, the reality is that she's human, just like the rest of us, and that yeah, it was a surprise to read. I never thought in genuinely a million years that would ever happen, but here we are. Yeah, and so we just wanted to take it a little bit seriously for a moment and then proceed.
We joke around, obviously a lot on Open Bar. It's the nature of it, and I guess today it just didn't feel appropriate to start it that way. So we just, there's not really a protocol for this sort of thing. We're just fucking assholes on the internet who talk about movies most of the time, but it's a momentous day, I suppose, and it's it's a sad day in a lot of ways. But at the same time, she had a pretty damn good life, and did a hell of a lot with her time on this earth. So I guess shouldn't feel too bad about it. So for the people in chat and for everyone here, I will raise a glass to Queen Elizabeth II. May she rest in peace, and press F to pay respects in chat if you could, my friends. There we
Absolutely.
go. There we go. All right, so that is the somber part out of the way, and because I don't want this whole stream to be, downbeat or anything. We do have things to talk about in the world of entertainment, and it's always good for a laugh, if nothing else. And so we have got a fine panel of gentlemen to join us this evening, Molar. I think we've got some fucking awesome guys. We will start with the one and only Tyrone Magnus, who I think knows my own content better than I do at this point. He has done great reaction videos to my stuff, and it's a pleasure to finally have him on tonight. Hello, sir.
Woo! What's up, man?
There you go. Yeah, man, I know this is taking a while to organize. Like, we tried to do it a couple of times. Schedules are a bitch, and I'm pleased that we're finally able to get you on tonight, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Every time we wanted to set it up, there was a movie that I already had tickets to see to do a review of, and I think you had already seen the movie, maybe.
Yeah, I think it was Thor. It was Love and Thunder initially.
Yeah,
and you were going out to see it that very evening, and yeah, we couldn't do it, obviously.
Oh yeah, the coverage of that was like immediately after it came out. I think I got home and we started talking about it. I was like, oh, sure, all right.
Yeah. So finally, there's no movies I need to see, so we can definitely talk and chat. Now, you guys, I've watched you a few times, on here, and you guys are assassins. You're at a different level, so I'm going to try to contribute as much as I can.
Don't worry, man. Honestly, my insights get less and less as the evening goes on, and I get more of this inside me. So it's all right.
Hey, Drunken Assassin, backup channel name, I think.
That's pretty good, actually. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
We better bring the rest of the guests in. So we got the one and only Gary from Nerd Rotzig. Pleasure to have you on again.
Good.
Thanks, man.
My last sip of coffee to the lady. Hi everyone, and wow, I'm here with Tyrone Magnus. That's cool, and Molly and Drink.
Hello.
Very excited to talk about Rings of Power some more, and not even close to being done talking about it. We got.
I wish the new episode would come out today. It would have been perfect. But what can you do? We're gonna have to wait. We're bated breath until tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it 2 a.m. You said
2 a.m.
Fridays.
Yeah, for me, I think it's like midnight Pacific. So it's 2 a.m. I stayed up till 4 last night. So I woke up at 2 day to watch it live when it comes out.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
And what's crazy, by the way, is that anybody out there who follows like the our circles of streams and stuff, you'll have seen me and Gary have been on so many streams together lately.
I know. I'm actually almost hesitant to ask you guys about this because it's like you'll be fucking sick of talking about this show. The rest of us can try and pick up the slack if it's a pain in the arse.
Mauler and Gary getting tired of talking about Lord of the Rings? I don't think so.
No.
I'm clinging to those like live streams that we did when we covered the original Peter Jackson trilogy, and we just were gushing with joy about like how good it was. I try to think about that. That's my happy place when every time I watch a new episode, it's going to get me through.
Right. But we got a 20th anniversary coming up of Two Towers in December. So
shit.
Let's do it again.
God. Those were the days.
Feel old?
It's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were spoiled. I better bring our last guest on as well. This is a newcomer to the open bar streams, but man, he has been producing some awesome content over the past several months, and his channel is absolutely blowing up. He's gaining 1,000 subscribers a day, and he's almost like a Mauler Mark II, I think. He is the little platoon. So welcome aboard, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
God.
we got some fantastic British accents on this.
Beautiful voice.
and
as the other Britisher, I'm obliged to also raise a glass. Also atheist Republican, but nevertheless raise a glass. I'm on the Johnny Walker Black Breakfast of Champions, but I'll raise a glass to the Queen for that. But
also atheist Republican.
It's another Lord of the Rings fan there. I mean, Star Wars and Lord of the Rings are sort of my big two, and it's been great to see both of them trashed this year. It's been good for the channel. Pretty miserable for the psyche, but yeah, I'm still working on the review of the last 2 episodes for Rings of Power, and of course the next one comes out tomorrow. So it's a toss up as to whether or not I chuck that on the end and spend another week on it, or whether I sort of get that one out. And
I mean, are you tempted to wait until the whole season's been out, or are you going to try and do it like in blocks? Like first.
Well, if I wait, the way it's currently going is if I wait for the whole season to come out, I might actually create a video that rivals Mauler. Because this is a 2-hour one for 2 episodes. The next one's probably going to be at least an hour. If there's 10 episodes, 10-hour video? No, 11-hour video, maybe. Who knows? Yeah, maybe. Well, we'll see. I'm thinking episodically.
We've got the same logic with EFAP. We don't want to wait till the seasons are done, because those episodes, to cover them all in one go, we're looking at 24 hours at least. That's you can't
there's only so many of those you can probably survive.
It's like bleeding a radiator. You got to get it done gradually, and then you don't want to wait until 10 years later where the whole thing's just not working anymore, right? And the audience, they need their breaks,
The good news is Rings of Power will have large swaths of time where absolutely nothing happens, so that might save you a little time.
This is true, but
that's basically like episodes 1 and 2 already, really, isn't it? It's like we're just killing time, really.
Every time there's a quiet moment, though, I've got because I'm sitting right now next to the complete history of Middle Earth, the one that Christopher Tolkien's done all the companion essays for. So every time there's a quiet moment in the show, I think, right, I'm now going to go back and just correct all of the lore mistakes, and then the video gets even longer. So quiet moments aren't necessarily a good thing. Not for me.
I dread the quiet moments because it's like, oh shit, someone's going to say something really dumb here. Like it's going to be like pseudo philosophy stuff that was written by like an 11-year-old with ADHD.
Listen, Drink, a dog can bark at the moon, but he can't bring it down.
Yes. Fucking hell.
Like, all right then.
How does this get through professional like script writers and everything?
Do you think Elrond even knew what he meant? He was just like, I'm not a dog. What?
Yeah. But you've learned about why boats float, haven't you?
I've studied that line for the longest of time, and I still haven't cracked it. I don't know what it means. Who knows?
It doesn't make any sense. There is no light in the sky at the time she's speaking. So what's she talking about?
It's deep, deeper than any of us can even fathom.
The whole show is just like it veers between like pretentious, pseudo intellectual philosophical stuff like that, and just dumb Matrix style fight scenes where Guy Ladriel just kills the shit out of everything.
She ran up that sword. I was like, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah. Fuck you, gravity.
Do you know, I actually showed my dad that scene where she takes on the troll. I was curious what he thought. It ended, he was like, wow, she's good, isn't she?
Like,
Yeah,
I-
it's real good.
you know, remember the cave troll from Fellowship of the Ring, right? That was a great fight scene because it was kind of terrifying when it first bursts into the room, and all of the Fellowship have to take a swipe at it. You know, Gimli's hitting it with his axe, Legolas is shooting it with arrows, various other people like hacking it with swords, and it's kind of a team effort to take this thing down. It's that powerful. But it's like, no, Galadriel has to do the whole thing herself. Yes, Queen Slay. Well
Yeah, and
done.
it's not even that she does like a finishing blow. All of her team do nothing. They just stand around until it decides to kill them. And what's weird is I don't think there are no elf corpses by the end of that fight, right? It's just they're all fine.
Yeah,
which is
even
odd.
though we clearly saw some get like squished.
Yeah.
You got swiped right across the room. It's like your entire skeleton just got liquefied there, son.
Not in this show. Elves are like Terminators, okay? They'll be fine.
Yeah.
Terminators that look like 56-year-old men.
just what you want to look like.
They really did change their look, didn't they?
Well, they always had this.
Like those are the elves.
They always had this, like, I don't know how you would describe it, just this ageless look about them. Like they could have been 20 or they could have been 50. Like you just didn't really know. You didn't know from the original Peter Jackson trilogy. Like they cast really good actors who were just, you know, perfect for the roles. They had the long flowing hair and everything, and they conducted themselves like, you know, beings that have been around for thousands of years. Like they talked and acted like you would imagine. Like they've seen it all, they've done it all. Now they're just like hyperactive children. Like they're gullible, they're easily suckered into things. They get all fired up about simple stuff. Like it's just, it feels so weird and out of place. It's not in keeping at all with what these people are supposed to be, and it reinforces my belief that like the people writing this have no understanding of what they're working with.
No, they even if you want to make them look different, and I wouldn't know why, honestly, because the look they have is not aesthetically pleasing, right? So it feels like a rights thing. I don't know this, but it just feels like one, and maybe like Gil-galad could look like an elf. I don't know. I honestly don't know. We know why they can't use Harfoots, but they're, you know, for $60 million an episode, you'd think you could try to make them look, you know, cast a little more appropriate, look ethereal. Remember, Will Porter was supposed to be Elrond, and he left the project, and he looks like a younger Elrond, like a younger Hugo Weaving.
Yeah, the Elrond that we've got. Oh, I don't know how to say this, but you're not exactly a looker, son.
I remember when he was Ned Stark and things made more sense.
I've actually called him all the way through my review. He's just called Young Ned because I refuse to accept that this is Elrond.
Now it ends.
Now it ends. Yeah. He got the accent down pretty good. It was fun. That flashback was awesome. Arthur Dane kicking ass. Remember when we liked Game of Thrones?
But yeah, I mean, with this, man, he just feels so out of place. Like Celebrimbor is the same. Like that, I don't buy him as like this wise elven smith. You know, he just he seems like some goofy Doc Brown type character. You know, he just wants to tinker with his science experiments, and I don't get it.
Maybe cut some hair. I don't know.
Well, Drinker's only been 2 hours. Do you really expect to have learned much about the characters in 2 hours? Come on.
No.
I mean, 2 hours, that's only the length of an actual movie.
Yeah.
What you expected to learn in that time.
It is a little bit hard, though, to learn much about the characters when they keep doing those Indiana Jones map style that cross across thousands of kilometers of planet, and then you get to a different part of the world with an entirely different set of characters doing another snippet of plot. And then there's usually so much stupidity in that snippet of plot that you get distracted by that. And then there's another Indiana Jones map sequence as they go to the other side of the world again. It's very, very difficult to actually develop an attachment to any of them.
Yeah, and especially when you're with writing this poor, where they need to double up dialogue to fill time. Watching it again was and the second episode is so much worse. Was a lot of the same stuff. I mean, if you go for the Harfoot's entire journey was finding man and putting him in cart and in a hut, and then he shows him some constellations. That's it.
I remember him. On the sort of breakdown for EFAP, when we'd gone through a couple of the scenes, I said to like the chat, it's like, how much do you feel you've learned so far? It's like we've gotten, and I think I said some simplistic things, and I was like, we are halfway through. I don't know if you know that. Like that was half an hour's worth of information. It is shocking how little you get from the show. But hey, you know, maybe it'll pace up a little bit in terms of information per time in the next few episodes.
I don't know if because it's not strictly amount of information. It's the way they condense it, because you get nothing for the vast majority of it. It's episode 2, isn't it? When eventually suddenly you get the whole raft sequence with Cthulhu's fish guy, and then you have everything thrown at you in one go. You've got the first mention of the Corsairs, you have the leaving of Valinor, the refusal to go into Valinor, you have the humans from the Southlands, you have Cthulhu Fish Guy, you have the new hunky man chap whose name I don't remember, you have the argument with Galadriel, you have her discovering, and all of this takes place within about 2 minutes, I think it is. And so this entire episode of nothingness, and then you're bombarded with stuff, none of which makes any sense. It's like the ocean of contrivance. And then they move on again, and then nothing happens. It just spreads some of this out a little bit. Maybe you have a show which does have some content worth watching, but if you are just going to condense it in this way, no one's really going to be able to follow what goes on in the action sequences or be interested in the long periods where there are no action sequences.
And now all that information was like a giant dick measuring contest too. It was in the form of an argument, right, between Galadriel and Sauron. Sorry, Hallbrand.
We call them not Sauron from now on. It's funny, like you just like it's so interesting the thought process behind this writing, where it's like the one male character who's genuinely like masculine and heroic looking and like looks like he can handle himself in a fight. Like you just know that's of course going to be fucking Sauron. You know, like none of the other pussies that are like represented in this show are going to be a candidate for this. It's got to be him.
Looks can be deceiving, drinker.
Of course they can. Oh my god! Like, did you get that subtle reference that they dropped there? Whatever could they be telling us?
I don't know.
They just drop the subtlety entirely. He's like, you ever wanted to be a giant eye? And Galadriel's like, what? And he's like, nothing.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. You know what would be cool is if you had the power over everyone, some kind of ring that could tell you, that could give you control over the whole world and all the people in it.
It's like,
that'd be great.
When Anakin is talking to Padme, and he's like, if people disagree with you politically, you make them agree. And it's like, oh, Anakin, really? I hope nothing bad happens to you in future. Yeah, you know, even that whole sequence with the Cthulhu monster and all those people, and even mentioning the Corsairs, I don't feel like I gained much from it once it was all done in terms of information, in terms of
it was just time wasting. It's just put her in a situation, like waste some time, introduce a character that she's going to get to know. That's all it is. It could have happened anywhere, anytime. It was just really convenient, you know. She jumped off that boat. She's hundreds of miles from land, but she's going to swim back because she's Galadriel.
Yeah, there's some good comedy though, like when they pushed her off the raft. I was like, that's good. It's entertainment, you know. Yeah, that's another thing. Some people like this is an unfair criticism, but I was like, this show is incredibly humorless. It doesn't have to be, you know, funny, but like, fuck me, like, you know, the whole like, you smell, and he goes, no, I don't, and then sniffs himself. It's like, no,
that's She-Hulk levels of humor.
Right. Yeah. Just like,
and it just again, it feels like like a conversation that's not going to happen between two elves that are hundreds or maybe thousands of years old. Like it's like the kind of juvenile shit that you would say to your mates when you're in high school. You know, you stink. Like, why is this getting talked about here? It's just so childish.
Yeah, you would think in thousands of years you'd work out the whole showering thing and staying clean. Maybe.
Not in that fucking
if elves even smell, I don't know. They might not.
Gary, that village, I think showers are outlawed.
I don't think elves have BO. I'll have to look that up. There's probably a letter on that somewhere. It's letter 372. Elves do not have body odor.
Yeah, they're just too perfect. They don't produce bacteria to smell. But it's interesting because, like, I know, like, we've criticized the show here, but like, don't you know, because if we did this, we're all racist.
Yes.
And I know this because Amazon themselves have said this to us.
Oh, God,
Lord
I
of the
saw
Rings
that
on
today.
Prime says, "We, the cast of the Rings of Power, stand together in absolute solidarity and against the relentless racism, threats, harassment, and abuse some of our castmates of color are being subjected to on a daily basis. We refuse to ignore it or tolerate it." Tolkien created a world which, by definition, is multicultural, a world in which free peoples from different races and cultures join together in fellowship to defeat the forces of evil. Rings of Power reflects that. Our world has never been all white. Fantasy has never been all white. Middle-earth is not all white. Be it BIPOC belong in Middle-earth, and they are here to stay. I mean, well, that's fixed it then. Congratulations, Amazon. You have
pretty
fixed
definitive.
racism. Well done.
So anyway, the
just-
show's not very good though.
Yeah.
This
doesn't
is
make
what it
the
comes
show
down to.
good.
It's like you can't. So I guess we can't criticize it now. It's like, well, they've just decided that anything like that is just racism at this point. So we're done.
Sometimes I wonder about it. You know, like when you have all these people come out against it, it's like, do you honestly think there's just this huge army of people who are like, nah, I can't be watching this. I just hate black people, so I just can't. Like, do you think there's that many really popular public figures saying that? Like, come on, it's ridiculous.
It's
like
just
you want to believe it.
Well, it's become the defense, really, hasn't it, for any project?
Yes.
You know, it's like if you've got a criticism against this, like if you criticize She-Hulk, well, you hate women. If you criticize Rings of Power, you hate anyone who's not white. You know? And
it's sort of like it's reverse gatekeeping, though. So this is a large part of the population that doesn't have pop culture titles to their name or that they've inhabited, that they've forced their way into in the name of inclusivity, diversity, and tolerance. And once they're inside, they've pushed everybody inside, outside, and closed the gates again. And the claims of racism, of course, if you expand the definition of racism, anything you choose as racist can be racist. But if you force that on people, then what you're essentially doing is gatekeeping in reverse. You've taken over a franchise, you've claimed it for yourself, and then you've redefined the language so to make anyone who opposes what you're doing politically with the franchise, that makes them an outgroup now. So the people who've inhabited it for years no longer can inhabit it. And the maddening thing about it is that, watching through episode 2, I actually quite liked the portrayal of Disa. I don't like that the character exists because she doesn't. But I think in terms of, personality, warmth, and humor, there was probably the only kind of vaguely personable character in the show, apart from maybe one or two of the Harfords. That was all fine by me. But the problem is when you're using inclusivity as allegory, then what you're doing is it's not just pushing diversity, because you can have an argument for or against the worth of that. What you're doing is you're pushing diversity to prove a politically allegorical point, and that's antithetical to what the whole purpose of the Lord of the Rings is supposed to be. This is not how you create universal art forms that everyone can love. The reason half of these actors wanted to be in this show is because they already loved it without having seen themselves in it, because it's a universally appreciable work of art. As soon as you start pushing out groups, then you effectively particularize, you're balkanizing the fan base, and that effectively makes a common property now owned by a particular set, and that's a complete betrayal of what Tolkien stood for and what he wanted to accomplish with Rings. So that's the irritating bit. I don't think you can sensibly make a charge of racism against that argument, but I'm sure they'll try.
Well,
they will.
This
Star
is
Wars
wrong. I totally saw myself in Aragorn as also a 70-year-old, soon-to-be king, handsome, athletic man. I fix all those boxes just like he does. It's beautiful. And Gollum at the same time. He's another one of those ones. It's just funny, yeah, because we've said this so many times, but it used to be character traits, experiences, and arcs and stuff that you can relate to and understand. But now it's like nah, none of that's important compared to more of the surface recognition of what a character is rather than who they are, which is really unfortunate.
One of the things that irritates me about this when they do that, you have some criticism towards something, and you're going to be phobic of something, or you're misogynist, or you're racist. But then some of the same companies will turn around and take me out of the poster on Star Wars to market to the Chinese, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. You know what I'm saying? So what are you doing? You know what I mean?
It's always just like, they're in favor of your cause, or they want to represent you until it's not profitable, and then they're just happy to abandon you and move on to the next thing. And this is what you wrestle with time and time again. But when you try and point it out, it's like it falls on deaf ears, and all people hear is like, "Oh, you're daring to criticize this thing that happens to have a diverse cast, or it's got race swapped or gender swapped character as well. You must just hate these people, and it's such an infuriating thing to have to deal with because it completely deflects the valid criticism again and again. You know, because it just plays on people's basic emotions, but they know it's effective, and so they're going to keep doing it.
Makes you wonder what kind of world we'd be in if there was, for whatever reason, hypothetically, there was just this like lie detector machine type thing that was bulletproof and it could tell you whether or not a person was actually racist, and it just came up as no for all the people they think are. It's like, what do they do then? Like, they're like, wait, well, then why don't you like the show? This doesn't make any sense. It's like,
and this is all a marketing thing. I mean, it really ramped up when the show came out. We've been talking about it for 6 months. Because this isn't our first rodeo. We've seen this. I mean, we just saw it happen with Obi-Wan. It's playing out the same way. And yeah, it was the kiss of death to see Star Wars like support that tweet that went out. I knew it was going to happen. And when you lead with, hey, we're making a show called Lord of the Rings, spent $250 million on this thing. And one of the first few words they use to describe it when they finally talked about it publicly for the first time after the death of the great Christopher Tolkien was diverse. That's one of the first words they used. They didn't, hey, we're going to try to adapt this. We love Tolkien. No, diverse was one of the first words they used. So when you lead with that, for one, it's belittling to the people you hired. And when you lead with that, that tells us you don't have a story, do you? You don't have anything, do you? And we learned this over time when we saw it happen again and again and again. And it's finally reached like this boiling point with even normies where they're starting to notice this. This is being it was talked about on The View.
Yeah.
But it's finally so they have to roll out some Lord of the Rings actors, make a shirt that looks like they made it Cafe Press or whatever, and try to vilify fandom to defend a bad show, an objectively bad show that the biggest complaint is it's boring. The dialogue is dreadful. And and that's not going to get any better, by the way. I mean, you might have seen the best 2 episodes of this based on what I know.
You'd think they would want to lead strong. I would assume they would want to, put their best shit at the front. And it's going to be downhill from here, I think.
Well, I think they thought they did
good shit up.
Yeah,
I think they thought when they showed like like the bit with Sauron, like I think they thought this is the best thing we got. People are gonna love this.
But that's just a condensed form of like the Darth Vader hallway scene in Rogue One, where it's like, remember this thing that's really cool.
Not even
remember
anything.
That character? Like, we're just gonna show him for a few seconds. Like, ooh,
may as well
those member berries going.
Yeah, like a moving poster that's zooming in. I don't know. Yeah, that probably was them being like, "Oof, this will hook them right in for the good." Now we can give them fucking an hour and 50 minutes of nothing because they've seen Sauron. That's how that would work.
And it reminds me of Star Trek, like how Kurtzman approaches Star Trek. It's the same formula. And I wasn't familiar with the Little Platoon. Sorry, I just subscribed. I'm going to watch all your stuff.
Thank you very much.
I just buckle up, my friend. Buckle up. If lore matters to me, and if it matters to you, man, it's going to get bad towards the end.
I'm looking forward to that.
People were saying to me as well, Gary, because I didn't see all your live streams about this, but like the wizard that crashes to the ground in the comet, you were of the opinion that is going to be Gandalf.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be Gandalf that they won't name. That's I could be wrong. But
because they've given you some visual clues, haven't they? So they've used the talking to the fireflies is the visual clue for talking to the moth in Fellowship. He also, I think he does a brief snippet of when he grows and everything grows dark around him that he uses to scare Bilbo into handing over the ring. He does that as well. So I'm pretty sure they will attempt, at least if they don't call him Gandalf, then they will try and leave you in no doubt that it is Gandalf. But even if they do call him Gandalf, I'm not calling him Gandalf. So he is known as Steve in my review all the way through.
I was of the opinion that it's going to be too obvious to be Gandalf, so they're going to try and use that to mislead you, and it's actually going to be Radagast, or it's going to be one of the other wizards that we never got to see. Like, because I think there was 5 of them altogether, and 2 of them haven't really been named, so they're just going to make him one of them. But I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm crediting them with too much intelligence.
They wanted a wizard and hobbits because they didn't think the normies would recognize Lord of the Rings, and it would be awfully tough to adapt something that's just elves. But they have this Numenor thing. this fall of Numenor, which is just an epic tale. It ends kind of bad, but it's an epic tale, and it's like as dark as Tolkien gets. It is brutal human sacrifices, like basically worshiping the devil and pissing off God so much that he cracks the world. I mean, that would be awesome to watch, just something like that. But no, they're just going to squeeze that into everything else. Good luck. Good luck.
Because they had that as well with the very setup, didn't they? I mean, you have the Flight of the Noldor, you have the Kinslaying, which is this really dramatic, tragic moment, and it imbues the history of the elves with such moral meaning and purpose. And they got rid of all of that. There's no mention of the Valar even in Valinor, so there's no reason for the war against Morgoth to begin with, or why he doesn't actually destroy the trees, but they claim that he does. No, There's no actual undergirding thing that gives the world any life. It's just, well, we've got some names and places from the appendices, so we'll just throw those in. That looks good enough to us. And we'll just keep some people on their toes with the occasional lore reference. Like, I don't know, Gary, if you agree, but with the end scene of the second episode, if that's sort of like a sack of Doriath setup, because you have the Dwarven King with the mystery box, which could be Marcellus Wallace's briefcase, but otherwise it could be it could be like
so beautiful.
Yeah, so beautiful. But it could be a setup for something because they have to explain why the elves and the dwarves eventually fall to hate each other, don't they?
They do, and I'm pretty sure that's Mithril in the box. It's just Mithril. So it could be something else. It could be that. Not sure, but Mithril.
I wonder if it was like the Arkenstone or something. But I think that's later in the lore.
The first thought I had was Arkansas, but then I was like, wait, because I'm not as up to date on my lore as you guys clearly are. But I was like, Arkenstone was found in Erebor, right, which is very different from Moria / Khazad-dûm. So, and that doesn't it get found way later than now, the Arkenstone, or is it way before?
Well, it depends. When is now? When is now?
My timeline in my head was you have the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit is before that, obviously, and then the Arkenstone was found before the Hobbit, but not like hugely long before that,
after,
right?
Because we're dealing with a Durin here, even though there's two things, right? So,
I assume it's still at least 100 or many hundreds of years after where we're at now before they find the Arkenstone.
I don't even know how far we are in the Second Age. I like from the show. I have no idea where we are time-wise. They said centuries since the end of the First Age. And that not mentioning the Valar is kind of I think they can't they do not have rights to the First Age at all, so it's got to be something, but that's mentioned in the appendices. I don't know if Saul's Ants or whoever they sold it to, I forgot what it was now, some Swedish company is coming in on them. I know Warner Brothers is. So while they were making this, I'm sure they were having tons of legal problems because this IP is now split 3 ways, essentially, and it's going to be hard to deal with. But to answer your question, I was told it was Mithril in the mystery box, or that's what's going to be.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, they're going to center it around Mithril. They're going to try to construct something else, and then it's going to lead them to the Rings of Power, which you don't see in the first season.
Well, is it worth speculating that they'll meet the Balrog by the end of this season? Then,
yes, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, which they dug too deep. There was something Rags was talking about where it's like, because again, I don't know as much as you guys do, so I'm just we're just making this stuff up in terms of theories. But it's just like a little speech about how the mountain will tell you where to dig and where not to dig. Presumably, there will be a "don't dig here" sort of moment, and then they will dig there because Mithril is there, and then they'll go boom, 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 and then big old fire, and a bunch of dwarves will die, and it'll be sad. It'll be real sad.
It'll look like the beginning of The Hobbit too.
The thing is, if they got 5 seasons, they're gonna want to not blow their load too hard with the Balrog, I guess.
Well, think of the commitment, right? So there's no way in hell they're going to get a season done every year. So it's not going to happen.
It's 2 years, isn't it?
It's going to be 2 years.
We're going to have to wait 2 years before the next one.
Decade.
Good God.
Well, hey, on the bright side, that gives them a chance to course correct.
It does.
It does, yeah. Fucking hell, World War II was concluded quicker than this fucking show. Jesus.
You say course correct, they'll get worse. They'll be like, you hated this? Let's crank it up.
Well, remember there was a time in Hollywood when people would course correct pretty quickly, maybe sometimes too quickly if you're a Snyder Cut fan. And You know, that's but that happened all the time. One movie sucked. It was not getting a sequel. They would cancel, they fire director, and now they're just, because it's so corporate, they're so prideful, they can't admit any mistake. So we just got to stick with what got us here. How's Star Trek doing, by the way? Oh, we got a Picard trailer.
Well, like you say it like, you know, we had it recent-ishly with The Last Jedi and Solo, right? Disney Star Wars were like, oh shit, like stop. We fucked this up. And it's like we still got to finish the trilogy. All right, put out whatever. Get JJ to finish up that last one. We'll stop there and we'll figure this out. And then
I mean, that was less of a course correction and more of just a course cancellation. Yeah, there's just like no more movies.
They focused on streaming for a little bit to gain the favor back from several fans, right? Which did work.
How did that work?
With some, not with us for now. Oh, Kenobi is destroyed. Kenobi and Boba Fett, I think, destroyed any goodwill Mandalorian gave them.
This transition to like streaming TV shows, like for both Star Wars and for Marvel, the best I can liken it is to like, you can either have a guy take a massive steaming dump right in front of you, or you can have like someone take lots of tiny little shits in your general vicinity. And that's kind of what it comes down to. Like they're both bad, but it's like one is less offensive than the other just because it's smaller.
Totally agree.
Is it, going with that analogy though, would you prefer to just get it all done with in one big poop?
I would, yeah.
I would.
At least with Rise of Skywalker, that was 2 hours out of your life, and it's like you can suffer through it and be like, that was fucking awful. Let's just move on.
Good God, look at how much JJ achieved in that 2 hours compared to Rings of Power in terms of storytelling. Good for you, JJ.
I just what is happening to us as a culture? Like I
thought you meant our mental states. So like we're just going insane. I don't even know any of this is real anymore.
That's for me.
Why can't we create anything good anymore? Why are we so fucking dumb? Why are we so incompetent? You know, why is all we're capable of doing is just like taking the carcass of like some old work and like reanimating it and making it dance some horrifying jig. Because that's all we can do now is just take all these old properties and just, you know, pick meat off the bone. That seems like all we're able to do. And it's just so fucking depressing when it comes to like what we are doing as a culture. Like, I feel like we're just...
It wasn't always like this, though. And it makes me wonder why they're holding to this pattern for so long. You know what I mean? They've made successes in the past. Why not stick to what worked?
Yeah. And when they have one now, it's an anomaly and they won't copy it. I mean, you had Spider-Man No Way Home. How people liked it. People loved that movie. And I liked it too. Maverick was freaking great.
You know, the lesson they're going to learn from Maverick is literally just going to be, we need to take more old stuff and make a sequel.
Yep.
Like, that's all they're going to get.
Jets. We need jets. Somebody get me some jets.
Yeah.
We circle back to that
Iron
question.
Eagle 5. Make it happen.
We circle back to that a couple of times, like the whole like why, but like I think to piggyback on what Little Platoon was saying a bit earlier about the reverse gatekeeping thing, it's like I feel like back in the day when they were making these adaptations, they had a vague awareness that they should hire writers and directors for adapting it that were actually maybe fans of the thing. They used to do that. That was a thing they used to do.
But you're
Sometimes those writer directors would be like huge into the source, and then they'd be like, can't wait to move this to like a new medium. Meanwhile, these days you'll be like, are you baiting Mephisto? And then they go, who's that? And you're like, oh, that's oh shit.
I think that's part of it, but there's also the problem. Even when you do find people who are fans of the thing, just because you're a fan of the thing doesn't mean you actually understand it or what went into the creation of it. And there's a lot of it I think has to do with sort of class comfort and experience, in that you had back in the days when, if you could compare Tolkien's life experience, for example, with the life experience of the writers who've created Rings of Power, you can do the same thing with any product that was written back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, or any film in the 70s or 80s, or even the 90s. Compare those with the people today. Back in the day, you know, Tolkien living within proximity of a massive world war. Today, you've got people whose principal social gripe is apparently catcalling and mansplaining. It's just not analogous or in any way comparable. So even if you get people who, I mean, Jessica Gao for She-Hulk says that she was a fan of the comics. She might well be, for all I know. But it doesn't mean that she actually understands or has a life experience that can equip her characters with the kind of troubles, trials, and tribulations that actually make them characters you want to invest in the first place. So when Rings of Power's writers comes along, they have no life experience. So they might well have read all of the appendices. They might really like Tolkien, but they don't understand how character works because they don't really have any character themselves. They're incredibly comfortable. They've all been educated in exactly the same places, in exactly the same schools, with exactly the same mindset. And they've had no exposure to life outside of sort of upper middle class, Silicon Valley-esque kind of culture. And it really shows when they try and imbue characters with trouble and strife. It just doesn't work because they don't understand what these things are.
You're absolutely right. Oh my God, you're absolutely right. That we have not had that in so long, and we have a bunch of suburb kids who went to film school and they haven't like gone out, they haven't gone out hunting or been in the military or just done something adventurous in their life. We had writers who used to, man, go out and kill people, but I don't want to go that far. But like we had writers who like lived lives, like real lives, and that stopped a couple of generations ago. Right. So, yeah, that's part of the problem. And meritocracy. There's still talented people out there. Drew Goddard, he was the original showrunner for Daredevil. Loved Daredevil. Also had kind of the juice, had the power to make something that he wanted to make. And he made a perfect season of television. Like he was completely responsible for that. And that's why it's so good that you got a guy that intimately knew Frank Miller's Daredevil in particular, but all of Daredevil. So
like there are different degrees of fans. I'm sure everyone here would agree. And like the idea that some of these people are saying like, oh, I love Tolkien, so I'm writing Rings of Power, and I'm clearly a big. It's like, because it reminds me again of what you were saying about the when they go into the fandom and then they're like, you guys get out. You're not welcome, sort of thing, until they push everyone out, and then this is the part that I think is super important. They're like, well, I'm bored. I'm going to move on to the next thing, and they leave too, and so the whole thing is just a husk, and it's just like, thanks for that. You could have just not arrived at all. And because it makes me this is something we've been talking about for a while, but fandom as a fashion where they're a fan of fandom. They're not actually fans. Like there's people out there who really enjoy being a part of a community that are just happy to be a part of a thing, and that's it. They don't actually care that much maybe about Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or Star Trek. They're just like, oh cool, we're all surrounding this thing. Yeah, woohoo, yeah, this thing. Oh, it's over. Next thing, and which again reflects the way that they're making content these days as well.
I think what you're seeing now as well is like fandom as battleground for whatever socio-political cause is on the cards now. It's like we have to infest this thing and infuse all of this shit into whatever people used to enjoy. It used to be just an innocent hobby. It used to be a pretty. I guess that's the best word I can use to describe actually things like Lord of the Rings. There was an innocence to it. There was a purity of like storytelling, finesse to it. And these people come in. It's like, well, what about queer representation and transgenderism in Gondor in the Second Age or whatever? And like you just get this. That's all they care about. It's just bringing this in and pulling like all of these stories down to their fucking level with all this garbage shite that they keep spouting. And this was echoed I think recently when we had like the 5-year anniversary of like The Last Jedi, and Rian Johnson was of course sitting there saying, I'm more proud of this movie than ever because his attitude is basically the more people hate it, the more I'm going to fucking love it and just pretend it's like the greatest thing that's ever been made by any human ever. But anyway, someone made a comment on this that I thought was really on the mark, where they said there are people out there who take genuine pleasure in knowing that this movie, ruined fandom for a lot of people. Just that knowledge of like they were able to take something away from people with this film. That makes some people genuinely happy just out of sheer malicious glee. Yeah. And I thought that is a pretty good summation of what a lot of these people are about.
They want to watch the world burn.
Yep.
Pretty much. Yeah. They hate the fact that people love things and like they just want to take that away from them.
And because fandom is the most prominent thing now, it's genre, entertainment, fantasy, sci-fi. That's where the activists want to hitch their wagon. Like political activism used to be in music. That's where it was prominently. It was in music and it was in film, right? But now film has been reduced to superhero film. You're not really getting the arts. Northman might be a dying thing, which is too bad because it's a great movie and you should see it. But like, yeah, that's where
Sorry.
No. Do we even know what the little platoon looks like? I don't even know what he looks like.
Vaguely like my little avatar, except with whiskey instead of wine on this occasion, and then vape instead of a cigarette, because I'm actually not as hardcore as that. But
right. Same here. I quit smoking too.
Sorry, Gary, on you go.
No, that's what's happened. They've hitched their wagon. Jessica, I want to say Jessica Gao, whoever is writing She-Hulk. There was an article written that it was either her or another writer took a swipe at like the core Marvel fandom, called them incels, and they said specifically this show is a swipe at them, at all the comic book nerds that made this thing famous. And that's just funsy onesies, and they're going to move on. And I would love to challenge her to a She-Hulk trivia contest. She's invited on any of my live streams anytime. Let's go. Let's see how much she read the comic books. These people were cast; they weren't hired. That's the problem. What Little Platoon said to add to that is the meritocracy is gone. We're not hiring the right people for the right job. We're just casting them so we can go, oh my God, look at how great we are. We hired these marginalized people. We're awesome. I'm going to go sit in my jacuzzi in my $6 million mansion now and pat myself on the back. It's like,
well,
shut
up. He didn't lie when he said, I'll ruin your mythos in a minute, baby. Consider the incredible damage he did of shitting on Norse mythology, the MCU comic Norse adaptation, the MCU in general, and his own fucking movie that he made a sequel to. He really did a good job of that, sticking to that sentence. I'm just saying.
This is the question I ask myself, right? Sometimes, for whatever you want to say about Rian Johnson, I think he genuinely believes that he made great art. Like he loves his movie, and I'm sure he jerks off to it every couple of days. But he thinks that The Last Jedi is like the best movie he could have made. Okay, then you've got Taika Waititi, who I think genuinely knows that Love and Thunder is garbage, and he just don't give a fuck. Like, he made that film, just shot a bunch of scenes, produced a 4-hour cut, and eventually trimmed it down to something halfway coherent, and just said, whatever, the peasants will consume my garbage. Because, the last movie did well. And so he doesn't care. He was just out to, like, dick around, have fun, indulge his love of humor, which is pretty unique to him. And that's all that mattered to him. So, like, who's worse as a director? I honestly don't know.
It's very generous of you to refer to Love and Thunder as halfway coherent, by the way.
I mean, but I'd love to see the 4-hour cut just to see how ridiculous it is. But, yeah.
Dude, have you seen the deleted scenes they've been putting out?
Yeah.
The Disney Plus release?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, it is a test of your patience to continue watching. You're just like, whoa.
But that's what I mean. Like, he made this thing. He sunk tens of millions of dollars into filming scenes that were never really going to get seen by anyone. And, it was just a bit of an ego trip for him. He was on you go, man. Sorry.
It reminds me of the situation with Batman 1989 and Batman Returns. It was like he made a successful movie and then they let him have full reign over the next one.
Yeah.
And a lot of people complained about the darkness and everything. Batman Returns. With this one, it's the comedy. It's like it's so much him that, I guess the studio or whoever couldn't rein him in. They just let him have whatever he wanted to do, and it backfired.
Yeah,
and it seems like it kind of backfired with Batman Returns. You know what I mean?
It's an interesting comparison because I would say Batman Returns and 89 are very, very Tim Burton-y movies, even to the point of I've heard Batman fans say like they're not very Batman-y compared to Tim Burton-y Batman-y sort of thing. Meanwhile, this if you watch those Vanity Fair videos, it looks like Waititi just did not care at all. He's barely even paying attention. Like, I don't know if I would call this. I agree that it is absolutely him. I just don't know if it's him, but good. If you know what I mean. Like, if he wasn't trying, he just like. Because my God, the jokes were better in Ragnarok. Okay, I know loads of people hate Ragnarok, but the jokes were better. I swear to God.
I mean, the example I've given before is like the the play scene, you know, like, you know, in Ragnarok, where you get to see like this play that Loki's putting on, where he's in the disguise of being you know, Odin, and it's like, you know, bigging up Loki's role in the previous movie, and you know, he's got this tragic death scene, and he's like this underappreciated like anti-hero of the whole thing. And it's a great reflection of how Loki sees himself. It gives you a little bit of insight into his character, you know, so it does actually serve a purpose. Then when you go to Love and Thunder, you've got the same kind of scene. It's just a play, you know, really amateur recreation of Odin's death in Ragnarok, but it serves absolutely no purpose whatsoever. It's just there because it was done before. We had this play with like Matt Damon and stuff in it, and we're going to just do the same thing again because it was funny, but it has no context now. It doesn't tell you anything. And it's a perfect example of the thought process that went into this film. It's like, fuck it, like just recycle the same gags as before. Doesn't matter if they don't work now, just do it. Who
like
cares?
Ragnarok is the point of comparison, though, isn't it? Because I mean, if you're comparing Love and Thunder with anything, it probably should be the last Waititi, Marvel film Waititi was involved with. But Waititi didn't write the majority of Ragnarok, as far as I recall. He wrote all of Love and Thunder. And so, you know, on the question of whether, you know, who's the worst director, Ryan Johnson or Waititi, I think Waititi can do really good stuff with other people's material. Like, he injects his unique humorous style to a script which has serious moments. He can't actually achieve the balance himself, though, when you give him free reign to write a script. Whereas if you compare it to, say, Ryan Johnson does know what he's doing. Ryan Johnson thinks that destruction is art in and of itself. So it depends what you mean by who the worst director is. If you want the person with the illest intent, that would certainly be Ryan Johnson and his ability to actually follow through with that. I think Waititi actually is quite clever and quite talented, but you do actually need someone to write the majority of the script and then ask him to make it funny, as opposed to saying, hell, do what the hell you want with this and we'll just greenlight everything. And then he will just do what he normally does because he is a man-child and just inject jokes everywhere and no story. Because that's like the big difference between Ragnarok and Love and Thunder, or between Guardians and Love and Thunder, is that actually Ragnarok and Guardians of the Galaxy both have story first and foremost. They have deep, somber moments. They take the time to actually allow the audience to think, okay, this is a story that I'm watching first and foremost. Whereas Love and Thunder doesn't give you any time between all of its comedic moments. It's just joke, 2-second pause, joke, and so on.
It gets to the point where it's not even, you know, you're just looking at it and thinking that this is kind of stupid the way they've decided to do this. It's like offensively bad. You know, that scene where Thor and Jane they're on the boat and they're on their way to like the dark realm or whatever, and like they're trying to have a really emotional moment because this is a woman who's dying of cancer and like may only have days left in her life, but she's willing to lay it down to help Thor out, you know. And it's like that whole talking about regrets and the things they wish they had done. It's a great moment if you just allow it to breathe, but they have to keep jumping back to Valkyrie and fucking Korg with his, like, he's just a head like sitting on a countertop talking and singing to each other. And it's such a horrible way to undercut a scene. It's not even funny. There's no jokes that are even amusing in that moment.
It's painful. A lot of the jokes in that are fucking
Craig
painful.
Kyle and was it Craig Kyle? I just had it here. Christopher Yost and Craig Kyle co-wrote Ragnarok, and they worked on a ton of Marvel cartoons, including Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which was actually pretty good. But then one of them also worked on Cowboy Bebop for Netflix.
Oh no! Because on the point as well, even the potential for just performances is usually wasted as well. How do you get like a 2-hour movie without enough, like Chris? Because we talked about how Christian Bale, even Chris Hemsworth, and the rest, just like there'll be a skill flaw. There'll be at least X amount of good. They'll usually pass like the test. Meanwhile, Bale was like actually surprising in terms of like you feel bad for how much effort he was putting in. But they just don't give enough material to actually even make use of anymore. If you think of like Phase 1, 2, and 3, there was just so many more bigger, grander, emotional, and supported moments. And I was thinking, even comparing to Ragnarok, having Anthony Hopkins pretending to be Loki, pretending to be Odin, is already like way more interesting than anything that happens in Love and Thunder. Like, I can't think of an individual. You get like Natalie Portman for a few seconds trying to say that she would rather risk her life than allow Gore to win. You know, this is like something. But again, I'm assuming you guys saw the deleted scene. Fucking Zeus shows up. He's just there and he's eating an ice cream behind like a little drawn curtain. She does this whole speech. Thor says to her, like, I'm gonna beat him myself, and she's like, what if you die? And he's like, I can't die because I'm fighting for you. It's like, oh, it's vaguely a meaningful and serious thing to say. And then he just like gets up and because he realizes Zeus is there and he's just eating an ice cream and he's like, oh, hello.
So
like,
someone,
oh my fucking god!
Yeah,
someone desperately needs to take Taika Waititi, right? Put him in a room and force him to watch, maybe a couple of days worth of British comedies throughout the decades, because he needs that education of like when to just allow dramatic moments to breathe and let them sink in, because he's got so much to work with in this movie. And I don't want to go off on a total tangent where we just end up going into Love and Thunder again. But yeah, like the idea of like a woman dying of cancer who's, going to spend the last bit of life that she has to go on this last adventure and try and reunite with the man that she loves. That's pretty heavy dramatic stuff that you could do a lot with. You can have great emotional payoffs there. The movie doesn't do any of it, though, because none of it's ever allowed to sink in. None of it's allowed to breathe.
No, it's a lost art. There's no art here, so never mind.
To redirect then a little bit, because the other thing I was going to say is taking from mentioning Rian Johnson being the with more malintent maybe compared to Taika. I would wonder about that, because like if you go over his interview, he said like he wasn't his intention whatsoever to deconstruct or ruin Luke Skywalker. It was to actually embiggen him and talk more about what he represents, his legacy and stuff. And on that note, right, you could argue, see, his intention was actually good. He just fucked it up. But I would really want to ask him, I'd be like, how do you feel about the fact that like half of the universe, half the world believes you tried to destroy Luke? What does that make you think? Like do you not concede? I feel like if any of us had the intention of doing X and half of the audience felt we'd failed, that's got to affect you a little bit as an artist, right? I think it's a complete cope when he's like, oh no, I want half the people to be angry and half people like, yeah, sure you do. Sure,
it's like that whole like interview he did where the interviewer asks him like, is there anything you would change about your movie? Any creative choices you would make differently? And he's like, nope, stand by every choice. It's like, fuck off, no you don't. But you're just digging your heels in now because you refuse to accept any kind of criticism. It's like, well, fine, whatever. Like, if it makes you feel better. Like,
I'm genuinely not sure about that. I said malintent earlier. Maybe malintent wasn't the word I was looking for. But then bad guys never believe they're bad guys, do they?
No, of course. I'm with you on that. I'm just saying it's interesting to think about as well.
I don't think I would put it past him not to regret a single decision he made. I think what he wanted to do was leave a mark on an established franchise. He was deliberately shocking. He did exactly what he knew would shock people. He might have done that because he thought that was also the best way to explore a character, but he also must have known what at least some of that effect would have been. I'm quite sure he did it deliberately to be bold, to be provocative, so everyone can look back in decades hence and say that was the Rian Johnson Star Wars film. Rian Johnson is now inseparably entwined with Star Wars. And so I wouldn't at all be surprised if he doesn't regret a single moment of that, because he's achieved it, but maybe not in the best of ways.
This is like getting into Fight Club territory where it's like it's better to be hated than ignored. Like,
well, I still have to imagine though that of all the results, he probably wanted the Empire result, where it is like, whoa, controversial choices, however beloved and considered one of the best movies of all time. That's probably what he was aiming for.
Yeah.
Instead, he's got a movie that many people still reference to this day as being like the go-to for, something. Rings of Power comes out and it's like it's the TLJ of Lord of the Rings. It's like, what? Like if that were him, you'd be like, oh, for fuck's sake.
But hey, I mean, at least he got the 8080s in there, and he got the the Salt Planet. So it's basically Empire, right? That's the same.
Kind of reminds me of the whole thing with the whole gaming industry with the Last of Us Part 2. I mean, people lost it, and then I think. I don't quote me, but I think Neil Druckmann had said something to the fact similar to, with Rian Johnson, like we wanted to shock you and we knew it would get a reaction. So whatever reaction that it was for you was kind of like the right thing.
This is the thing with like Last of Us 2. Like I can totally get behind doing really unexpected, shocking things with your story and your characters if you've got the storytelling skill to carry it off and actually make it work. Great, like push the boundaries and do things that are like unexpected and interesting. That's good. That's what keeps us going. But they absolutely did not have the skill to carry this one off, and so what you ended up with was a game that was just deeply unsatisfying. Like I assume you played it and you felt the same way, but man,
I refused. I saw some of the leaked stuff. I refused to play it.
Okay. You probably you missed a lot of pain then.
Yeah. I told people, I said, you're gonna have to send me 10 G's if you want me to play that. And I was like, I would send it back. I don't want to play.
It's one of the most like honest realities about their choices there is summarized by it, because I think some of the first exposure anyone had to the game was watching PewDiePie's Let's Play of it, which is quite well watched. It was it still is huge, millions of views on it. As soon as Joel dies, PewDiePie is like kind of quiet and like and then like a few minutes later he's just like, I don't really want to play this anymore. It's just like yeah, I'm just not. I've lost any kind of motivation of it, and that's when you realize like, oh, you still got like fucking 18 hours of game left, by the way, and half of it is with Abby. Like,
I've said this before. Like, imagine how much more impactful that game would have been if Joel's death didn't happen at that point in the game, and you spent so much time with Abby, like bonding with her, getting to know her as a character, getting to empathize with her, really supporting her, and you think she's a great person, and then she meets Joel and this happens. That would put you in a difficult position as a player and really challenge your perceptions of what that character is.
Yeah.
But if you open with that, if that's your first exposure to her, you're never going to identify with her after that. It doesn't matter what you do with her. It doesn't matter how many puppies you show her saving. You ain't going to get me to like her after killing Joel.
The blueprint of this has been around forever. It's even in Avengers. Like when you have Iron Man and Thor smashed together, the reason why it's like actual significant conflict for us is like, I've seen Thor's movie. He's a cool dude. I like him. I've seen Iron Man's movie. He's also cool. Don't fight, guys. But then they have perfect reason for them both to battle each other, obviously. And it's just like, that's really satisfying and interesting. And you don't know exactly sure what's going to happen. And when they both get, highs and lows in the fight, it's relatively interesting, like I said. However, when they make you play as Abby avoiding Ellie, you're like, well, I just kill me. Just kill me. I don't even want to fuck that.
I've seen great compilations of people just intentionally like throwing her off buildings.
Like what? That's what I mean. It feels like a fundamental misunderstanding of your own audience, which is very common.
When you give MCU examples, look at Civil War. You got Tony and Cap fighting. You totally understand where each person's coming from because you've gotten to know them. You know what they've been through, and you know what their values they hold, and why they're in opposition to each other. So you don't necessarily want either person to win. You just want them to not kill each other. But that's what they should have been aiming for. But they absolutely couldn't do it.
No. Man. And they took the choice away from the players at the end of the game. With it, they should have let us choose whether to kill Abby or not. They didn't have the balls because they knew what those
everyone
would
have
choose.
Killed the shit out of her.
Yeah, yep.
And I genuinely think that the credits should roll, and then they should give you the statistics at the end, like how many players chose to kill her. And I would even say there's value there socially in terms of really thinking about what that fucking game did and what audiences came away from thinking. What does that tell you about your story, Druckmann? Like, what does it tell you?
Well, he's acting like Ryan, Rianne. You showed me that picture he took of what was that at the golf shop called the 5-iron.
Right.
Yeah. Just took a picture recently, like under the golf shop called the 5-iron, and he's all, and the whole symbolism of that killing. It's what they've done to every female character. They make them insufferable at first, and we're supposed to like them later after some sort of arc, but we just want them all to die. And if a dude acted like that, to be the same way.
Man, I tried to fix Wanda. Like I did, like my last video, I was trying to fix the multiverse of Amanda.
I can fix it.
Yeah, I can fix it.
I can fix it.
And even then, I was struggling, but it's like, okay, I have to somewhat adhere to the plot of the original movie and just try and retweak it. But like, yeah, this is what they're doing to these characters, man. Like they're expecting you to root for people that are genuinely horrible human beings. Speaking of which, She-Hulk.
Oh God, I knew it was coming.
We're doing the good, the bad, and the ugly tonight, and so we've done the bads with Rings of Power. Now it's time to talk about the ugly.
Jesus Christ! For a second there, I thought you were going to say the good. I was like, drink it, don't you dare.
No, we've got House of the Dragon. That's good, but this fucking hell, man. This is genuine pain watching this show. Like, it's not even like I object to the source material or anything like that. It's not even got the bare bones of entertainment. It's about as funny as a fucking terminal cancer diagnosis. None of the characters are likable. Every situation they put them in is ridiculous, and it's such a horrible waste of great actors. Like, you've got Benedict Wong, who's awesome, but like, God, they just use and abuse that character, man.
Yeah.
Honestly,
if I can get us started, because there's so many things.
They made him really silly.
The reality is, I don't know if you knew about this, but they were originally, the origin of her powers and how she learned to understand them, quote unquote, with in episode 1 that we saw. That was originally going to be episode 8. That's from what I've heard anyway. But they decided late in the game, people aren't going to want to watch this show if they don't understand how she got these powers. And that's hence her line about that. It's meta, the fourth wall break in the first episode. She was like, you're not going to focus on the cool lore show if you don't see how I got my powers. So they moved it. That's indicative of how they would have made this show. Couple that with the information that they said they were going to have a full-on trial of 3 episodes with Blonsky or something, but they decided to cut it because they don't know how to write lore. All this put together, they're fucking moving all these episodes around. They don't know exactly how they're structuring it, all this other stuff. They're not really connected, these episodes, either. The fact that you can move them around means that there's no real through line. They're just making episodes and hoping you don't really notice that there's no threads. And I didn't see anything to illustrate this better than the previous episode. Wong is told, you're a fugitive. You've kidnapped someone. You took him out of prison. You've got to face the results of that. It's like, oh shit. And he runs away. It's like, all right. So that going forward in the MCU, Wong is now a criminal, on the run. The American government will want to hunt him down. It's like, that's crazy, but okay. Yeah, sure. Next episode, he's literally in court. And he's dealing with a case, and they've completely forgotten that he's a fugitive. Shit like this blows my mind. I'm like, you don't even know what happened in the other episode when you made this one, do you? Who knows which one was written first? I have no idea.
The defense I've seen, the one defense I've seen of this show, and it's a qualified defense as well, and it's also one that I don't particularly agree with. But the one defense I've seen which makes any kind of sense is that, well, okay, it has all of these faults that you've mentioned, but it's not supposed to be a narrative comedy. It's supposed to be a sitcom, is the defense that I've heard mentioned. And I can see why people might think that, because it's clearly borrowed cues from sitcom-style productions. The problem is it doesn't think it's a sitcom. So it is actually introducing narrative elements that then do create these massive inconsistencies and that do require you to remember what happened in the previous episode when you come to write the next one. So it's one of those things that I think it just doesn't know what it is. Is it supposed to be a sketch show? Well, there are sketch show elements in it, sure. Is it supposed to be a sitcom? Well, there are some elements of that in as well. Is it supposed to be a narrative comedy that actually fits within the broader world of the MCU? Well, yeah, it's making attempts at that as well. But you can't do all 3 of these things at once. You do have to pick one and run with it. And the fact that it's tried to run with all 3 at the same time has just created this massive mess of nonsense. And also the fact that they don't know how to write any of it. So everyone knows the interview where she said, well, we didn't know how to write court scenes. But you can find another interview where she says, well, we didn't know how to write with CGI either. And I'm sure you can find another one where she'll say, well, I didn't know how to write action scenes. Like, literally the worst possible person to do an action legal comedy drama is someone who doesn't know what comedy is, doesn't know what action is, doesn't know what legal drama is, and has never used CGI before in her life. It's fantastic work all around.
The CGI is legit some of the worst that I've seen in the past 10 years. Yeah. Like, any scene where She-Hulk has to walk through an office, it's like watching a PS1 character move around. It's so jerky, it's so unnatural. And I know that like they don't have $100 million budget to play with, but holy fuck, man, it's Marvel. You've got to.
They were the ones that decided to do that. It's like we didn't have the money to buy the whole planet. It's like, so why are you trying to? What are you doing?
But the thing is that there's an interview again with, Jessica Gowers basically admitted that they didn't know what they were doing. There is another interview where she says, so I went to Kevin Feige and I said, look, we're doing a show about She-Hulk, so we're going to need some CGI. What kind of money can we spend? And apparently he gave her a blank check. He said, if you're doing a show about She-Hulk, then we want to see She-Hulk. And she said, well, that gave me the indication it was a blank check. So then I went and wrote the thing, started filming. And then somebody else from lower down in Disney and Marvel comes along and says, money's a bit tight now, actually, guys. Can you cut some more of these scenes? And could you make She-Hulk Jen in a few more scenes? So I genuinely don't know that they knew how much money they had to spend. I think the impression was given when they pitched it that they would have a lot more money to spend than they did have to spend. So they had to really downgrade and rush and do all the rest of it. And it's hard to know whether you put much blame on the writers and directors in that case, if it is just a case that, Kevin Feige has just completely abandoned the steering wheel, much like She-Hulk herself does.
Yeah, I mean, I can blame anyone behind the scenes in terms of budget for the CGI looking terrible, but like the writers have to take all the blame for just how generally shit the show is. Like,
yes,
there's not a single gag in this entire show thus far that has made me even smile. And that's it's just painful to watch, and it's sad as well that they've got good actors involved in this. Like I said before, like they've got Benedict Wong in for some reason, and he just looks like he wants to die. You've got Tim Roth, and I want to show you guys something actually, because I've come to the conclusion that he's slowly morphing into Timothy Spall. Let me just hold
really?
on.
Timothy Spall lost a lot of weight recently, didn't he?
He really has, yeah. So, right, hold on. Let me just bring it in so you can see it. That's Timothy Spall. That just looks like Tim Roth in this fucking show. He's sitting there. He honestly looks like he's been brought in off the street, told that you're going to be in this show. He had no time to prep or anything, doesn't give a fuck, and he's just going to sit there in his chair and just say his lines and then get the fuck out of there. And man, like again, Hulk was so long ago that most people have even forgotten who Abomination was.
Yeah.
But like they brought him back and they made him the subject of an entire episode. Okay, fine. Yeah, sure.
And they made it killing time with that, honestly.
They're killing time with everything. This the show is about killing time because they have no story. It's like they came to them 10 minutes before they started shooting and said, right, cool, you've got your budget, go make a show. Fuck, we don't have a script. Just think of something. It'll be all right.
That's what they did with Multiverse of Madness.
But I mean, the Abomination stuff is the example of where it is trying to sort of do narrative comedy in the sense that this is an ongoing through line that they have to cover. But they can't even write the independent individual scenes properly with that. The court scene when he's in the prison and she's representing him. We did a review over Drinky. I think Mr. Brown Alliance. We were reviewing that over on his channel. Someone, it might have been me or somebody else, I can't remember, pointed out that they have the scene where the Abomination is called to give evidence, and she's playing for time because she wants Wong to turn up and he hasn't arrived yet. Yeah. So she encourages Abomination to go on a long spiel, and then when he goes on for a little bit too long, she decides, no, stop it now, stop it. You're going away from the point. But that's one scene that they haven't managed to hold together. The whole point was to play for time, and now you're stopping him playing for time. And it's, I think they were trying to make a joke out of it, but one of the defining features of this show is that you sort of think they might be trying to make it funny occasionally, but you're not even sure if they're trying to tell a joke because it's that unfunny.
Well, I think, when it's everything is unfunny, like you never know, really.
And this signifies where we're at with Marvel. I mean, we finally get the Abomination looking like the fracking Abomination, and it's a joke because Marvel's a joke. And they're like, well, She-Hulk is different. It's a sitcom. It's not different from everything else we've watched in Stage 4. It's gag after, pointless gag after pointless gag to either in the films, it's to get away from an emotional moment as fast as possible. And as Drinker said, it's just to fill time. I think it's partially the Bob Chapek effect. Maybe if they're pulling some funding, because he did that with the parks too. I know he's meant to save everything, but he's not going to. We're going to get so much more of this, and Disney just doesn't care. Disney Marvel knows the Marvel stands will show up, and they can just put out whatever they want. They'll get defended for the first couple of episodes, and they'll lose interest. I mean, this pattern has now repeated 6 times. When are people going to wake up to it? The first episode, not so bad. I didn't feel that way, but some people felt that way. And then nobody talks about it by the time it gets to the last episode. And when Daredevil shows up, I'm going to lose it. That's what I'm going to lose.
Isn't he in like the next episode?
So many people are afraid of what they're going to do now. It's like
they should be.
Episode it's gotten worse to people. So now they're so afraid. They're like, oh no. They were almost happy that Daredevil was coming, but now they're afraid of what they're going to do when he shows up.
My rationale when I watch these shows, or at least I learn about them, is like, oh my God, which characters are they going to butcher in this one? And so it's like you almost look for the guest appearances, like, oh Christ, they're going to kill Daredevil, or they're going to like annihilate him as a character, and that's what you do. It like you operate on dread. It's like, what are they going to ruin next?
Yeah.
That's all. That's all it
That's
comes
not
down
good.
to.
They get Wong is like incredibly stupid and petty. And it was really weird this episode. I don't know if you because Gary was saying you dropped out of it at a certain point, right? But like there's a point where a bunch of demons are released on Earth. That just casually happens in this episode. Where's Doctor Strange? Shouldn't he be here helping out?
Wong's
like, well, we couldn't afford him.
Wong's the Sorcerer Supreme, of course. So
yeah, well, Wong's great, but Strange is like on another level, as we've seen.
Yeah.
He's like, why wouldn't you bring him in? Why and he's so casual about like how I can handle a bunch of demons invading Earth. Yeah, sure. I just need She-Hulk. She-Hulk's the one that I need to help me. How bizarre!
She can't even do anything. Like, what is her strength
And
here?
then-
She's slightly stronger than a normal person.
And for anybody who hasn't seen it, right, there's a bunch of demons flying around in a big room. So he opens up a portal to a place where he wants to throw them all in. At first, he uses like a magical whip to grab one at a time to throw them in, while she is picking them up and throwing them in. It's like one. Bear in mind, there's like 50 in the room. So it's like, this is going to take a while. And then at the end of the scene, Wog is just like, all right, I'm going to turn it into a giant tornado-y thing. It sucks all of them in.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, probably
should
should
lead
have
with that in future.
Yeah, why did you even need She-Hulk? What was and then the scene ends with her grabbing the last one before we send it back. She shows it to the guy they were in a court case with, and she's like, sign the cease and desist. You know, you better sign it. But she basically is saying, if you don't sign it, I'll release the demon onto you. And I was just like, did the lawyer just threaten someone's life unless they sign a contract?
Yeah.
Does she know how this? She's one of the worst fucking lawyers I've ever
But it's
seen.
okay. Mahler, you don't understand. It's okay because she's threatening a man, so it doesn't matter when you do that to them.
That was
this
another
is
thing.
like
That guy
every fucking dude in this show is either a pussy or an idiot or evil or a shallow narcissistic moron. Like, that's all the categories they fall into. There's nothing else that falls outside that.
She should be disbarred. It's true.
It's so interesting how the writers perceive the world and like one half of the human race. It's conceived entirely out of spite and hatred.
Single 30-year-old women about 2 hours into drinking box wine. That's the writer's room for this show.
Gary, don't you criticize box wine? It's very efficient.
Gary, can we really just that what you just said? So what did we see happen in this episode, right? We saw a woman in a, presumably, is she mid-30s?
I shit you not, man. Tatiana Maslany looks about mid-40s. Like, there's some close-up shots of her, and I was like,
so
she's definitely a mid.
We'll stay there. She goes on a little dating app, not getting much luck, and then she decides to use her She-Hulkness to bait a man in that she actually wants.
36.
Then she gets him, beds him in the morning, turns back into her actual self. At least that's how she feels about it. And he kind of feels catfished.
Yeah.
And the show doesn't realize what it's done. Again. We've done this before. They did it again. And she's annoyed. She's like,
he's the bad guy, though. Like,
I think the show actually thinks that she's in the right. Like, oh, how unfortunate that he only likes you for your She-Hulkness and not your personality. On a literal, like, they hook up overnight. Like, this is what humans do, but they're not allowed to lie to each other about this sort of thing. It's really bad. It's really unethical. And she's just like, ugh, only liking me for my She-Hulkness, which she used to bait him.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, do they know what they've just written?
They don't, that's the thing. They don't care, and like they never think to like interrogate their own like logical process on this one. It's literally just men are just shallow, and they want a hot woman, and that's all that matters.
That's what she wanted. She just wanted a hot guy. She even says, "Oh, looks don't really matter, but they do."
Yeah, but they do, exactly. But imagine if a dude had said that about a woman in a Marvel show.
Man.
You could read it as like a sincere attempt to expand its audience there. Because the first video I did, I was like, well, who is this for? It's obviously it's just upper middle class, at least very professional single women in the 30s in metropolitan areas. I'm kind of wondering maybe whether this entire episode is not just to expand the audience to men who secretly like the idea of being pegged by a big green woman. And then maybe that's like broadening the audience a little bit. And then, you know,
I think that already describes part of the audience.
So someone said in chat, everyone knows Jen is She-Hulk. How is that a catfish? He didn't know. Did you see the guy's reaction? He didn't know.
Yeah.
To the point where he was.
To be fair,
yeah, that's the thing. It's one thing to say, you know, he should know, but he doesn't. You got to let people fucking know. And
you got to love as well, like, you know, when he's just killing time, because she's gone away from, like, through a portal with Wong. She might have been gone for hours, who knows, and he's just like stayed in the exact same place on her couch, and he's reading like Bad Feminist by some fucking like awful person that no one cares about. But like that's how the writers want to establish him, that he's a good guy because he reads feminist literature. What fucking dude in his right mind is going to read a book like that in his spare time?
Ever does that
on his phone, just like
like, oh man, a show to complain about catcalling, and then for her to do that, like, jeez. Seriously, got Wonder Woman flashbacks. I was like, damn.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I said this about the MCU. Their slogan just needs to be, "It's okay when women do it."
Yep.
That's pretty much what it comes down to.
From the studio that brought you a woman enslaving men, women, and children where they couldn't even go to the bathroom, we bring you date rape. Nice.
Yeah. Oh man, what a wonderful time we live in.
I almost wonder if it is, so like some part of it is intentional, because if I'm trying to impute motive to them, then the only one I can think of is they want you to complain about it, because if you complain about it when a woman does it to a man, that means you should therefore see why it's bad when a man does it to a woman. But the problem is that, like, I don't think they're that intelligent.
They don't frame it,
and they don't frame it that way. No, exactly.
Yeah,
they don't frame it like that either. It just comes across like it is just the most tone deaf, inconsistent production ever.
Dude, I got the distinct impression that the show's idea is like, isn't it sad that the world wants her for She-Hulk and not her character, not her personality? Isn't that sad? When it's like, well, she used that. She did. She's just as part of the problem as perceiving the world's problem with it. Remember in the previous episode where she was like, man, people are going to think I was hired for She-Hulk and not for my expertise. Like, you were hired for She-Hulk and not for your expertise. That's how it happened.
Wouldn't an interesting character arc for her be that, like, you know, she takes on the persona of She-Hulk, she becomes a little bit drunk with power, and she, you know, becomes arrogant. She maybe even becomes like aggressive and violent towards people, and eventually realizes the error of her ways, and realizes with great power comes great responsibility. You know, you can't just shirk that responsibility.
Character journey is a shocking suggestion. Isn't that what happened in the comics though? Doesn't she get drunk and get sacked because she becomes a bit of an alcoholic?
Well, she sits on the photocopier and, you know, photocopies her art cheeks.
But like that immediately makes her such a better character, because, you know, the show tried to portray when she got sacked, and then the next shot you see her in this massively swanky apartment, and you realize there's actually no material consequence for her being sacked, and she gets rehired within 5 minutes anyway. But you can't really sympathize with her position because she's so clearly not suffering from it. Whereas if you get her sacked because she's actually done something wrong, and it's actually a result of some deep character flaw, like, you know, falling to alcoholism for a bit that she needs to redeem herself from. It doesn't matter if she lives in a mansion. She's still got the character flaw, and that's something you can invest in and watch her grow from. And you can still do that in the context of a comedy. And hell, they haven't exactly made this one a comedy, so you can't say, well, that would be too serious.
Well, your fundamental journey there is like taking a person who's powerless, or like at least physically powerless, suddenly giving them immense power and strength, and watching what they do with that. And inevitably, they're going to have a period of adjustment where they misuse it, and they get a little bit, you know, full of themselves, whatever it might be. They have to learn how to temper that. That's a character journey right there. But they'll never do that, because that would imply that she's got something to learn, you know, and that she's flawed in some way, and that they won't do it. It's like they're just going to keep it like really simplistic. She's awesome. She's right about everything. It's just the rest of the world that has to adjust to her.
Dude, I remember when they were first talking about episode 1, they were like, "Don't worry, in the next few episodes, they're gonna have her learn that she was wrong about what she said to Bruce." We haven't addressed Bruce at all. Like, we've been doing our own thing for ages.
Yeah,
I love that.
What I thought would happen.
Well, when she breaks the fourth wall and she's like, "Oh, don't worry, this isn't going to be one of those shows that just relies on cameos to sell itself." It's like, and then they try to make a joke out of it, and it's like, well, apart from Bruce and Wong and Emil Blonsky, and but it's like you are literally doing that. That is the only reason people are watching this garbage.
This is the thing, man. I think we should give them less credit for, like, it's not witty dialogue, it's just the truth. They are right. When she said having Wong in here will give us immunity to Twitter like criticism for a week, it's like, that's probably true. People like Wong. It's good enough.
Yep.
But she's also correct in that it'll only last a week. Eventually, people will be like, man, She-Hulk was shit. They'll be like, yeah, She-Hulk was shit.
They are on a real downward trend with these shows, though, aren't they? Like, it's not just me. This is probably the worst Marvel TV show that they've produced thus far.
I think you're right in production. Like the I don't know, whatever nature of production there was for writing, directing, and special effects and everything, it seems to be the lowest quality out of a lot of them.
Is it some kind of race to the bottom? Are they daring each other to produce the shittest stuff possible? And how bad can we make it and still get away with it?
I mean, we're in a strange era because we had a guest not so long ago on EFAP who was agreeing about how terrible MOM was, how terrible Black Widow was, how terrible Thor: Love and Thunder absolutely was. She said it was fucking terrible, but she still said, like, She-Hulk is still the worst thing they've put out. It's just like, Jesus Christ, how do we keep doing this? Just keep going lower. What's going on?
Is one saving grace might be the fact that it is so sublimely irrelevant that there is one scene in it that you will need to remember when it comes to the next mainline film, and that's that the Hulk is no longer on Earth. That's it. And it will be, it will be used at the time as well. If anybody ever asks in the next film when you see the Hulk somewhere else and say, "Oh, how did he get there?" Someone will turn around and say, "You mean you didn't subscribe to Disney Plus and you didn't sit through all of She-Hulk to get the one thing you're actually going to need to remember?" It's the most long-running and expensive attempt at a single relevant scene I can think of. But the fact that everything else in it is completely irrelevant probably, it means it doesn't do as much damage to the rest of the continuity, I suppose. But that seems damning with faint praise.
It seems like bullshit to me that, like, if someone was to watch, let's just pretend it's whatever thing is next, and Hulk is just around and he's fully healed and he's Hulk, and you're like, "Oh man, how do you get his arm healed up from Endgame?" And it's like, "Oh, you didn't watch the other shows?" And you go, "No, I didn't." It's like, "Oh, but they explain it all in there." It's like, "Oh, cool." You know, I'm gonna go check it out. You watch episode 1, and you're like, "Oh, you said they explained it." It's like, "Yeah, they do." He's, it's his cousin's. He gives her his blood, and then she gives him her. You're like, "Oh, yeah, that's explained it." So it just seems like a way to get away with shit. They'll throw it over to the TV shows to not have an explanation, then publicly claim, like, "Oh, it's explained to the TV shows. Check them out if you want to."
Yeah, the fact that they have no plan. But I'm sure House of Harkness will explain everything. It'll explain it all. Can't wait. Echo, too.
Why the fuck are they making those shows? I just don't get it. Why?
I hate this. I hate.
Well, they can say they have a show with a Native American lead who is handicapped. I don't care. I'm going to say it. Who's also deaf. So she's deaf. She has a prosthetic leg. And it's like just virtue signal the show. She can't. There's no dialogue from her. So they're going to have Daredevil and Kingpin in it because they did such a great job with Kingpin and Hawkeye. By doing that character in under 5 minutes.
See, that's the thing. You were saying about the cameos, Drinker, where she has that line, and she mentions specifically the ones we've seen already being Wong, Blonsky, and wait, why am I blanking? Who's the third one?
What? Third cameo?
Third cameo that's already been in it.
That's already been in it.
Yeah, you just said it, and I've completely forgotten.
Hulk.
Of course.
That guy.
Yeah, you got those three. I remember finding it so amusing that she mentioned the three that the show wasn't even sold on, which was Daredevil. Like the fact that she's like, she got this hyper awareness of the cameos, and she didn't even mention the one that's going to be carrying the show because he's going to be in more than one episode, right?
I believe so.
And good God, the big standard fear everyone has, that scene where they both talk about law and he fucks something up and she corrects him.
Of course.
And
it's not even a matter of doubt. Like, of course, like she's gonna know more about law than
and then he said, he like turns to her and he's like, "You're a really good lawyer."
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
And then they'll do a fight scene, and of course she'll be better than him, and
and then she'll be like, "I can teach you a few things if you want." And he'd be like, "It'd be a pleasure." And then they fight some demon together, and then he's like, "Man, you better than me at that too." Like, oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
That's the glory of Marvel. On the plus side, though, I mean, we've talked about the bad and the ugly, but there is somewhat good stuff getting made, and it's the House of the Dragon.
Yeah,
It seems to be doing surprisingly well, and I'm not gonna lie. I mean, before it came out, I thought it was going to be garbage. That trailer just like hammered home the whole. It's going to be a girl power show because the men would rather watch Westeros burn than see a woman on the Iron Throne. But then you actually get to the show and it's like, well, it's relatively smartly written and the characters are pretty good and the performances are good. And it feels a little bit like Game of Thrones when it was actually not shit.
Yeah, I was concerned too, but pleasantly surprised.
So far, yeah, the last episode was the best one, and it really gave you a look at like Rhaenyra, like what she's going to be in the future. And even though she feels entitled to the throne, that she might not be the best person for it, even though and then there's people who are against, like I was looking at that scene today, Mahler, where Otto's talking to Allison, his daughter, and he just straight up says, it doesn't matter if she's the greatest queen in the world, she's a girl, and that the realm will tear itself apart. And he's actually within the realm of that show, he's got like really sound reasoning. He's like, there's it's going to be a civil war. The thing is, it's going to be one anyway. But it was done in a way to where he actually has sound reasoning within that world to say that. And it's totally manipulative and it's awful. But, it comes down to Targaryen blood. Remember, this is all about Targaryen blood. And Aegon doesn't have as much as Rhaenyra. So she's still probably better for dragon riding and all the stuff that works. So there's so many layers within every scene that I didn't even catch it on the first time around. And like that is so gone from genre writing in particular. It's still around, like there's Better Call Saul, of course. That's a great show. But like the stuff we used to watch used to be a lot smarter. So it's nice to see something somewhat intelligent that treats the audience with some intelligence that expects you to catch stuff and maybe think about it. Because that's why I watch. That's why I read books. That's why I watch this. I don't need to be told everything. Cool visuals are great, but I need a story with some sophistication, which we don't get from Marvel anymore.
No, those days are gone. But it's just nice watching like a show that feels like it was written by adults for adults.
Yeah,
it feels like a rare thing.
You know that theory, well, like the whole like men would watch the realm burn before blah blah. It's like you think about that line, you're like, oh yeah, that's exactly what we might have expected from one blah blah. But then you watch it in context, and then you think about the shows, and you're like, was that like an ironic comment because of Daenerys and Cersei? I'm starting to wonder now because I remember enjoying the memes where it was like, yes, the men will burn the realm, and then they show women doing it. I was like, and now because the show isn't shit, I'm like, wait, was that a point they were making where it's like it's a stupid thing to assume that men would burn the realm alone when it's more like anyone's capable of doing it through zealous like natures and stuff.
I don't know, because there are a couple of interviews out with the writers that have suggested that the show isn't free of some element of political subtext, which is what you'd pretty much expect from any modern production. The key is that they've actually integrated it with the lore of the world and also the lore of the sort of analogous time period in the real world. I wouldn't be surprised if that was genuinely an attempt to reflect about as close to gender politics as you can come. I think it probably would be to give them too much credit to say that was supposed to be an ironic comment, but it fits within the lore of the world because that is in fact what happens anyway. I mean, George R.R. Martin being so heavily influenced by the history of kings and queens in the real world would surely have known that there is the old shtick that people say whenever women try to run for president or prime minister, and someone will come out and say, well, women, they get into less fights than men do. And someone will point out, actually, statistically speaking, no, female rulers get into more wars than men do. But if you actually delve into that statistic, you find out the reason for that is that because as soon as a woman in the real world ever did take the throne, somebody invaded them because they perceived them to be weak. So it actually does work perfectly within the context of the history that the show is inspired by, but also the context of the show itself. And the other one was like the forced birth scene. Well, the birth was happening either way, but the writers did come out after that and say, well, this scene is of course much more important now in the context of Roe v. Wade, and you think, well, okay, then so you're now starting to inject messaging. But then you go back to the show itself and you think, no, again, this is sort of historical realism. You can choose whether you interpret it that way or not. Some people doubtless will choose to interpret it one way, and some people will not. But as far as, you know, if they keep doing it that way, I think that aids the show rather than hinders it. You know, the writers might be indulging themselves, but they're doing it subtly enough that the audience doesn't have the opinions thrust down their throats.
Well, I think it all comes down to that ability to like immerse yourself in the show, and if what you're seeing takes you out of it, and you're just very aware, like this is just the writer spewing their political opinions about present day America or whatever onto the screen, you're completely gone. But like if it's done subtly enough that like you can just still enjoy the story for what it is, you know, okay, fine, that's all right.
Yeah, because they're adapting a story that by the time it ends, it's not a female empowerment story in any way, shape, or form. It's just not.
Well, and who's the one character in the entire realm that believes in Rhaenyra and wants her to continue potentially to become the heir? It's like, well, it's her dad, the one that put it in place in the first place.
Yep.
So like, if the show wanted to say, see, all men, they just don't believe a woman can do it, and it's like, I doubt they would then have Viserys be like, no, I'm committing to this. I want you to be my heir. Not to say, by the way, that he literally made reference to how he wavered, which is only natural, I think, considering all the pressures of being a ruler. But like, oh man, I would rather just like when a creator or writer, sometimes they'll say a thing and you go, oh, that's really interesting. I didn't think about that about your work. Yeah, that's great. I can understand how that's good. Sometimes they'll say a thing and you're like, please stop talking about your own work. I beg you. You're making it worse. You didn't need to do that. It was fine. And then you said things about it. Now it's getting worse.
Need to stop. I mean, there was a couple of moments like, you know, Allison at the end suggesting both, you know, how the series should approach Rhaenyra when it comes to, you know, her getting married, like make her feel like she's choosing, and then suggesting the strategy and the stepstones. I was like, I rolled my eyes a little bit there, but like one of them, fine. But most of the episode was pretty good, and it worked. And Rhaenyra was, she looked like for the whole time she was like a petulant child, and it proved she was proven wrong at the end, like completely proven wrong.
This is the thing about all this, Gary. It's like we have to talk about it. We did the She-Hulk, you know, and we got Rings of Power from tomorrow onward to talk about. But now, and I'm happy to announce this, I get to be like, hey, at least we got House of the Dragon on the way. Another episode coming up.
So far.
And I hope that atmosphere can be maintained. I'm not expecting them to be great. Please just be good enough.
Good.
Like that's all I'm after.
That's the benchmark that we're going for now. It's like mediocre. You know, somewhat coherent story. Yeah, okay. That's better than 95% of what we have now.
Yeah, like I did a video on it last week or the week. How long have I been working on Rings of Power? It must be 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. Anyway, but that was sort of the basic premise. Of sort of going in there thinking, well, given how, you know, season 8 ends, this is surely going to be terrible. And I found myself watching it, and I was criticizing it because I think there are things to criticize. I think some of the narrative choices I don't think particularly work. I think the style is much less relatable. The character writing isn't as good in the first 2 episodes as it was in the first 2 episodes of Game of Thrones. That you don't have the novice hero to learn through. You aren't introduced to the world through sort of inexperienced eyes, so you are thrust right into the middle of high intrigue with stakes you don't quite understand. And once you get into it, if you allow yourself the time to do that, it's enjoyable. But I think that is a hurdle to overcome. But I did get to the end of it, and I look back at the things I've been criticizing, and I thought, you know, it's actually really nice to have been able to make those kinds of criticisms. I'm not just looking at the plot and saying, oh, lol, that was dumb. It's actually, no, you have to work hard to criticize House of the Dragon, or at least work more than you have to with everything else, which is a sign of a pretty good show by modern standards, and it's intriguing. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to that.
I think I said it about when I was watching Kenobi and Stranger Things sort of in nearby proximity. It's the same thing with She-Hulk and this, where it's like one of them I treat as a TV show where I'm like, all right, I'm taking you seriously and I'm going to be criticizing where I think you're faltering. Meanwhile, the other one, I'm just like, Jesus Christ, what is this?
Yeah, with something like She-Hulk, it's not even like, it doesn't even have the basic components of an actual narrative and a story. It's just a bunch of flashy things that appear on screen. You're just picking through it, trying to, well, it's like comparing like a piece of art in an art gallery to like a child's finger painting. You know, what are you going to get more out of?
Or a modern Marvel comic, same thing. I think the child's finger painting would be better.
I mean, I say child's finger painting. I could liken it more to like a monkey smearing their feces over a wall somewhere in like an enclosure. That's what Marvel is now.
Oh my god, it is. So yeah, after watching the third episode, we got a pretty good battle at the end, and the battle like meant something for a character. That was a weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stakes.
That final shot, I actually got a final shot of something going, "Ooh, that was badass!" Like, carrying out a torso with the dragon flying in the background. I was like, "Oh, that was pretty cool."
Cinematic parallels, putting the blood in both the Targaryens' hair as they went on their respective journeys.
The other pleasant thing, sorry,
things like that is like thought went into this. That's at least something you can appreciate. Like some kind of like creative energy went into making this show, unlike Marvel.
Yeah, I'm sure they have all the all the set builders and costume designers and special effects people that were on Game of Thrones originally, who are probably wanting to be on a redemption arc, right? And then we have brand new
We're
people.
Not all evil.
Yeah, right. We have brand new people in charge here. So, Sapoknik's gone. They brought in Alan Taylor, who was like an early Game of Thrones guy. Whoever's running Warner Brothers, they're all gone now. They're all gone. No Dan and Dave. They really need to end the post-show like explainers that has to end because they're just not very good. And like let us figure it out. They used to not have those. So it'd be not it's nice to mildly look forward to something every Sunday. It's so weird. It
is weird.
Been a long effing time,
dude. Getting together with friends to watch a thing and then discuss it. I'm trying to think of the last time I did that. I think it was Stranger Things, and that was unusual as well. And that show wasn't like fucking amazing or anything, but like there was a time where shows were coming out and they were good.
You get 6 or 7 like pretty good shows. Like I'll watch it. It's decent. And now if we get just a pretty good show, we're just like, oh my god, this is great.
That is the single fucking reason that The Mandalorian did as good as it did.
Yes.
It's like
someone in chat just mentioned Arcane. It's like, we'll be watching. I imagine me and Drinker at least will be watching that as it comes out this time around.
Cobra Kai comes out tomorrow as well, so
there's that too. Yeah,
I'm all in for that.
Yeah, same here.
So guys, you all universally agree that's good because I haven't seen Cobra Kai yet.
It's good.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's genuinely. I think you'll love it, man, and you'll have a blast with it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's tongue in cheek, but it's good. You won't be. It's perfectly paced too. They're like little half-hour episodes, so you'll be able to get through it pretty quick. I think you'll like it.
Okay, because I was worried about the whole so many years later removed from these big hits, that there was no connection. That's what I was worried about.
It plays on that really well, like the comedy value. But
okay.
I meant to recommend Drinker. It's on YouTube. There's a 5-part series that Riot released of the making of Arcane, and it goes over like all the different departments behind it and stuff. But one of the things I want to bring up here is the showrunner of it. He like pitched it to the founders of Riot, and they were like, "Nah." And then he was like, "Okay, can I have just a bit of money to make you a test thing to show you?" And he did that, and then he came back, more money to make more thing, more money to make more thing, and eventually he got the approval for the whole show from like an investor and all this different stuff. And like they go over the production, and when they had like lined out their entire story, they had it all built. They even got new people in. They were desperate. Like he was just explaining how much he thought it was going to be a disaster. He couldn't think of how to get it all together perfectly. They had to scrap ideas, redo them. It was a nightmare production. They worked their asses off in every department. They were trying to get all these different artists in for every different department. Every one of them was working really hard because they knew this was almost unprecedented in terms of the kind of scale of project they had. And I was just thinking about, do you think the people who made She-Hulk ever entertained the idea that they weren't making something incredible?
I mean, this guy obviously had the passion for the source material. He believed in it so strongly that he was willing to put in all that work and like kind of struggle up through all these different like levels of buy-in from the company, how much money they were willing to give him, constantly proving himself and stuff. I think the She-Hulk people were just given money. They were just given this check and told like, all right, okay, here's your show, go make it.
Do you get the idea? Like everything Drinker was like first draft. Like everything's first
Yeah.
draft, they just reworked it later.
Yeah.
Same mentality they went into Love and Thunder. Just like the fucking useless idiot plebs will just eat this shit up. It doesn't matter how garbage it is. Who cares? We've got so much money. Burn it. Just go for it, man. Just have fun.
It'll be
And then-
fine.
Yeah, that's all it is.
This guy who show ran Arcane, by the way, who's like on top of the world at this point because that show is getting all kinds of accolades, even up to like recently. Like, was it yesterday it won an Emmy for the best animated show of all time? Well, not all time, that year, sorry. But he the way, do you know where he started in Riot? When he joined them, he was dealing with tickets from players talking about their banned accounts. So they'd send an email in, and he'd be like, "I'll sort you out." That's where he started. But he kept he was a musician, and he was he just kept pitching ideas to the founders, and they kept being impressed. And now he's the showrunner of Arcane, which, to be fair, is such a powerful IP now that like it was relying on League of Legends as a game IP, but it doesn't need to anymore. It's its own thing.
That's crazy.
Which, dude, they had this part with one of the founders were talking about him coming to them and how they were always impressed with his creative sort of zeal, and they were like checking out stuff, but they always had to bring him down every once in a while, be like, "Oh, you can't do this." But they saw that they saw the final product, and he started tearing up when he was describing how important and amazing he thought the work was, and that they started in like a garage or whatever. It was 5 guys working on a video game, and now look, I was just like, God, this stuff is really inspiring. Looking at all these people working so fucking hard to make this thing work, and you know, Arcane's not a masterpiece, or at least I guess I think it's really good, but you know, it's not like perfect or anything. It's just that. It's so interesting to watch behind the scenes for people working so fucking hard for their craft, and then you find out like, what did you do, creators of Kenobi? And then they'll be like, oh well, they contacted me and they just said, could you write something up? And then I threw it at them, and then they used it. So you're like, oh, that's great. And then which I'm being too generous, because what Kenobi was it was a movie script, right? It was one of 3 for 3 different Kenobi movies, and they took one script and they ripped it apart and extended it into making it 6 episodes of a series, and that's exactly what it looks like when you watch it.
Yep. Repurposed.
Meanwhile, they brought in like loads of story editors and script writers and just advisors for Arcane to go through the entire thing. Like I said, they scrapped the story with the first one they had. They didn't think it was good enough and rebuilt it. And they tried to respect what players expected of the characters from the source. Just like, oh my God, why don't you think you should maybe... I would love to be in a meeting with like Marvel and be like, look how much critical acclaim and money Arcane has made.
Well,
look at Top Gun. Like, don't you want to make loads of money?
That's corporatism creeping in, right? So a movie studio understands that we're going to have to dump some money into stuff. They're always going to be tight with money. That's never going to go away, but they understand the creative process, right? Corporations do not understand the creative process. It's a fucking pie chart to them, right? So they're like, this is what you get. This is all you get. And we might take some away later.
Yeah.
But it's okay because this is all silly, stupid stuff. You know, this is all silly, stupid stuff.
We end up saying it a lot. We're just like, why don't they want to make money? There's loads of money on the table waiting for them right there, and they can even inject their shit if they want to. Just keep it to a corner, you know. Just
right.
Well, it's like you think they could at least balance it out and say like, well, a certain proportion of our projects we're gonna we'll push all this stuff into it, and then we'll bring the message as hard as we can. Like, great, we can change the world, make everything better, whatever. Don't care. But another proportion of it has to be the money-making stuff. And for that, we are just going to focus on telling good stories. We're just going to give you classic heroes, classic timeless ideas and all that stuff. And that's how we're going to finance all the rest of it. But it's like they've skipped that second step. Like they don't even think that that's the thing they have to do. So it's all just that first one where it's like, we're just going to push the message into everything that we do. Why are people not watching this? Why are people not paying for it? Don't know. Just make another one, and eventually they'll have to watch it.
There is this innate sort of I use the word conservatism lightly, but conservatism and a caution about a film studio, which tends to be prioritizing sort of replication over creation. So it's one thing to say, well, of course you would make so much more money if you took a risk and you created a brand new, well-loved hero. Well, the studio who finances this looks at that and says, well, that's a new thing. We haven't done that before. That is immediately a risk. Why would we do that when we know we can at least break even repurposing Marvel movie number 500 when we can do another sequel. I think George Lucas did an interview on this, didn't he, back in like the 2000s, saying, in some respects, if you were a filmmaker in the late 80s, early 90s, it was actually easier to get a brand new project off the ground in the Soviet Union than it was in the United States, because the Soviet Union, you had to please the government, but there were ways of doing that. Whereas in the United States, you had to please the corporation, and the corporation was only interested in sequel or TV series, and that was it. There is this sort of innate conservatism about the approach, and of course you marry that with the corporate culture, which prioritizes the message anyway, and that's another kind of conservatism and anti-risk attitude, because if your entire HR commissar department is geared towards the woke angle, then you're not really going to want to upset the apple cart, to use a horrible cliche with that. Combine those two things and you just get replicated films with no new story to tell, and in place of the new story, then you get the injection of political messaging, everything else that they think is just easy to do, and it doesn't represent a risk to them in any way, and it probably will make some money. But it's depressing, and it's hard to see how that ends, except if you get such good examples as, I think Top Gun is a really good example. Stranger Things is a really useful example because, it's sort of gone through the MCU arc in that it started well, faded badly, and has now recovered. And whether there are lessons to be learned from how the recovery took place is an interesting question. The other question is whether those lessons will be learned. I highly doubt that is yes, but, we can hope if we're unwise.
I think Stranger Things was easier to save as a brand because it was all contained within one series, whereas with Marvel, it's spread over so many, properties. Trying to save it is more than just like making one good movie. You're going to have to have an across the board change and a change of direction.
Well, that's why it was harder to destroy, but they've been pretty thorough at this point. And in the same way that if we got a bad Thor movie, but everything else is good, it's like, okay, we can survive that. But now we're at the point where we had a decent Spider-Man movie, but the rest is shit. And so to fix it now, if you had a good Thor movie, it's like, yeah, you got a lot of work to go still. You got to get us a good Doctor Strange movie, I was going to say Black Widow. I don't know what the fuck they're doing with all of that storyline. But yeah, and I was going to say, by the way, with all the stuff I've been shown for She-Hulk comics, I would, if I was on the board of directors and it was my money, I would have downright said when they presented me the concept for She-Hulk that this is too risky. And I'd be like, what do you mean? Like, what is this not? People aren't going to like this. Make the safe choice would surely be adapting the comics. This is stuff that people have been tried and true that actually like. Whatever this is, where she's shitting on our Hulk character. Don't people like Hulk? And I could see people on the board be like, yeah, people like Hulk, right? Yeah, maybe we shouldn't have a shitting on Hulk. Yeah, maybe that won't. It's don't you want people to like this? This is what I mean by how I agree with you that's obviously a part of how they make this stuff, that they risk assess. But I don't get how they see She-Hulk and think, oh yeah, that'll make us the money. That's an easy, definite win.
No, it was just how many girl characters do we have? Let's get them all out there. That's how much thought was put into it, and not think about the source material. And they're casting so many people and bringing in so many new people that they can't hide their disdain for this stuff.
Realistically, Gary, how long do you give it before we have an A-Force movie?
Oh, the Marvels is kind of going to be it, and I think Wakanda Forever, if you combine them, are both kind of going to be it. But we're going to have Thunderbolts. They'll always have a male, but I think it's probably going to be it won't be alpha Chad male. We'll just say that. Okay. But they're going to have Florence Pugh leading the Thunderbolts. I mean, I guess we find out this weekend, right? So we're going to find out what the Fantastic Four is going to look like. And
oh boy,
I can't wait for D23.
I saw someone do a concept art image for bringing back the actor who played Mr. Fantastic in the other films, just a lot older. He turned up in MOM. First thought, oh, that'd have been so awesome. Second thought, no, that wouldn't have been awesome. No, they would have killed him. Yeah, fuck that.
The picture looked really good though. I thought
that Ewan Grufford, the Welsh guy.
Yeah, I think it's Grufford, but I don't know how to pronounce the first name. I've never seen it pronounced.
Wait a minute.
I know. I
instinctively know how to do all of this.
You have to pronounce all their names right, Welshman.
I'm sorry.
Welshman. Rifus Ifans for the rest of my life. Rifus Ifans.
He's another actor who disappeared. He was in King Arthur. We watched that.
He was in a TV show.
He was in Hornblower.
What was the TV show he was in America? Right after that. Oh shit. Fantastic Four isn't as bad now. The Fantastic Four movies aren't as bad now. Because bad has lowered. So
I mean, the second one is pretty shit. I'm not gonna lie.
Guys,
I
I
like
haven't
the
seen
first
that.
one.
I watched that in the cinema and never watched it again. What was the problem with that film? I have completely forgotten it.
It was the
Was it
Silver
Galactus?
Surfer, wasn't it?
Forever. Thank you.
I remember being the fart cloud Galactus, but was there anything else that was wrong with it? Like,
I mean, the dance sequence was pretty.
Yeah, something was hokey
pretty
about it.
horrifying.
Jessica Alba getting naked? Was that? Oh, no,
that
that
is
was
not
not
a
a
bad
problem, sir.
that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Galactus being a cloud was stupid. But seeing
Yeah.
Silver Surfer, just seeing him, I never thought I'd see him. So Doug Jones was playing him too.
Didn't they focus on the torch a little too much in that too?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Chris Evans.
There's a combination of things, maybe.
It always felt like, and I could be off the mark here, but it felt like they didn't know how to make the four of them work together as a coherent like group of characters. Like it always felt like there was no chemistry between any of them. Like you basically just had four individuals, and like they didn't quite know how to mesh them.
Yeah, they didn't have the right director, not the right writer. You needed like Sam Raimi on Spider-Man. You needed somebody who knew the Fantastic Four. It's a really hard thing to adapt on the screen because it's pure comic book. Fantastic Four is like purely made for a comic book and not for anything else. So I mean, it's possible, but you would have to be really talented and have to care. That's part of it. You don't have to know everything about comic books. You don't have to know everything about Star Trek. But if you get the job, take it seriously. Going, okay, I'm taking a Star Trek movie. I'm going to go and watch everything Star Trek. I'm going to go rent a cabin because I'm a big rich director or producer. I'm going to spend 6 months watching every Star Trek episode because I care. Because I care about my work. None of them do this though. Very few of them do this.
Yeah, I'm looking at the trailer. Fantastic Four. It's such an early 2000s movie. Like,
Yeah.
I should watch that again. That'd be fun.
It would be be a good EPAP movies.
Incredibles is the best Fantastic Four movie. So you just get
Fuck
Brad Pitt.
Yes. I know we've got a bunch of super chats that came in while we were chatting away here. So we do a couple of them, see if we can get through a few. Let's do it. Scott Lawrence said the Batwoman is literal perfection. It will be when it fits a trans woman. I'm not sure where that one came from, but yeah, okay. Hey, Chronic Dreams says, saw the Korean thriller I Saw the Devil. You have got to see that for your next review. Better than any American movie that I've seen in the last couple of years. I Saw the Devil. There you go.
That's not saying much.
Yeah. RRTNZ says, Hail Drunkler, forget the rings of bullshit. The world needs another drinker top 5. What about your top 5 inspirational speeches in films, i.e. Rocky Balboa? That's how winning is done. Cheers. I mean, yeah, I could quite happily do that.
For some reason, the first one that's coming to mind is the President in Independence Day.
I was just thinking that, man.
Does Theoden count?
Theoden. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. We could once we go down this road, like there's so many, none of which happened in the past 10 years, but just generally.
Naturally.
Yeah, I always loved Al Pacino's speech in Any Given Sunday as well. I thought that was awesome stuff.
Okay, yeah.
That's I will do another drinker top 5s. Chucksenhausen said, and this is a multi-parter, so I'll just go through all of them. One more day until Cobra Kai premieres, and I already know you'll be spending the weekend binge-watching the show while messaging Jeremy and Tom to get more insight into each episode. Will Chosen be the main link to finally take down the franchise tycoon that is Terry Silver? Will Miguel forgive his real dad while staying close to Johnny, now that the world's bestest Uber driver? Will Amanda and Tori forgive each other and learn to like and love each other as stepmom and stepdaughter? Scratch that. Oh boy. Anyways, it's going to be a hash brown legendary time, and hail the hawk. Yeah. Cobra Kai is coming out tomorrow, and I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty excited about this, more so than pretty much any other show right now.
Yep.
Yeah, it will be watched and it will be reviewed.
It will be the palate cleanser this weekend for sure.
Yeah.
We might have two. So.
Might have two,
yeah. RRTNZ says, Hail Drinker, I want to support my Welsh-speaking sister, Morfid. FYI, pronounced Morvith. Oh, there we go, Clark. But every time she talks in Rings of Power, I want to yell, fuck, how do I say this? Cashobant equals Welsh for fuck off. Cheers. More, you can tell me if I'm saying that anywhere close to right.
I can't even, if I could see it. I don't think I've ever actually found out what "fuck off" in Welsh was, because I just tend to say "fuck off."
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's probably the best way. But yeah, they've spelled it like Cachau, new word, Bant, Cachabant.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Alright,
Honestly, I've never
go
seen it
with
before.
that. Andrew McCarthy said, "Hey guys, keep up the good work. Going to see Wrath of Khan again in theaters. Maybe my early 20s, but now I can say that I've seen The Godfather, Lord of the Rings, and Wrath of Khan all in the theater. Need to see Rocky and Star Wars.
Yes.
You son of a bitch." See, William Shatner was supposed to be coming over to Edinburgh a couple of years ago, and he was going to do a special screening of Wrath of Khan where he'd present it, talk about it, and then do signings and photographs and stuff afterwards. And I got myself a VIP ticket to go see it. Then COVID hit, and it was all cancelled, and it's never been rescheduled. Man, what might have been?
So I was doing a stream with some guys the other day, and they were all saying, "Yeah, I'd really love to go and see Wrath of Khan in the theaters again." I said, "Yeah, my mum was, I think, 8 when that film came out, so I'd like to go and see it in the cinema for the first time as well." Not rubbing in the age thing, but it's such a good film though, and like it's quite clearly quite derivative in the sense that, you know, it's clearly using the massive sort of World War II submarine chase aesthetic, but it's repurposed in such a brilliant way. And a lot of people sort of sneer at when you say a film is derivative, they assume that means it's just copying, but actually most great innovation is derivative. You can do really good things using established workable proven models. Wrath of Khan did it. It's not actually that hard to do if you've got a bit of an imagination. Can we not get a little bit more Wrath of Khan and a little bit less? What was the most recent stupid Star Trek one with the Fast and Furious guys and the music at the end?
Oh God, that was
Star Trek
Star Trek Beyond.
Beyond,
Yeah.
that was the one. That
Beyond
was
stupidity.
Traumatically bad.
And you are
I mean,
correct,
Into Darkness was horrific as well, because it took so many elements from Wrath of Khan and just like completely took them out of context.
It's the perfect Jar Jar Abrams film. Tells you exactly how he gets everything wrong and continues to do so. Did it with Star Wars right after it.
Oh God,
you catch like video essayists being like, Star Wars was derivative of, and then labels all the things everyone's familiar with, like the serials and stuff, and it's like, yeah, and it was one of the most culturally impactful things that ever happened on Earth. So like, you know, credit where credit's due.
You can take ideas and repackage them into a new format in a way that's creative and interesting and that works.
It's the difference. Like there's sort of 3 categories: there's invention, there's innovation, and there's pure derivation. J.J. Abrams is a purely derivative guy in the sense that he just copies. Innovation is derivative in that it uses invention but actually repurposes it in a way that people can use and like. But the really good example of that is that the Romans invented the steam engine, but it took the British to actually apply it to actually usable things, because the Romans just used it for bathhouses. And then there's invention, which is purely creative. But by virtue of being purely creative, it's loved by intellectuals because they're the ones who do the work. But it's also entirely unusable, and no one in their right mind would go and watch it. It's like inventive films are amongst the most unwatchable things in the world. The most watchable films are the brilliantly innovative ones. So Star Wars is a perfect example. Wrath of Khan is a really good example. We need more innovation and less. We sort of this surplus of people who think they're inventive and people who are just derivative, and we just don't have this middle ground of filmmakers anymore, which actually does good work with other older ideas.
Yeah, you have
So
Hammers.
That's
Wait, go ahead.
I was going to say that story I was telling about locking yourself in a cabin and watching a bunch of Star Trek was Marv Bennett for Wrath of Khan. Didn't know shit about Star Trek. Sat down, watched everything, and learned everything. And that's why it's better. That's why it's a good film. I watched it when I was 12. Couldn't believe what I saw, because the last film I saw was Motion Picture, and I'm like, what was that? That was fucking awesome.
This was a change of pace, and it was done on like half the budget as well, which is really impressive. But yeah, you and I, like, we've done happy hours on like a bunch of the Star Trek movies, like the older ones, and God, like, just blown away by how much like quality of writing, quality of character understanding went into those movies. Like Undiscovered Country, just incredible work. Good. Like, God damn. Like, I just feel like, we're never going to see that quality of writing with Star Trek again. It's done.
Oh, yeah, it's long gone. Yeah, rest in peace. It's Star Trek Day, by the way.
Speaking of resting in peace, from JJ here says, sorry to hear about the Queen. Yeah, well, what can you do? How long until the articles start calling our white supremacists start appearing?
Already happened.
Yeah,
already
that's
happened.
Already
Twitter
have.
already.
I'm waiting for the her death to be an Illuminati sacrifice. That's the one. The video
Yeah.
I'm waiting for.
Give it a little bit of time, it'll get there. J.K. Fozo.
I really want to see how the people who thought she was an immortal lizard person sort of like adjust to the new news, because it's
She's
just shattered.
ascended to the mothership.
They're going to
all the
say
people-
it's a conspiracy. She's not actually dead.
She's not
She
actually
just,
dead.
she's
She was
just
a
got a new
hologram.
identity.
Yeah, I saw that on my.
all the people who are like either celebrating or shitting on her and all that stuff, they're going to be real sad when they find out her lifespan was the only thing keeping back a portal to another dimension that's open now, and a bunch of demons
might
coming
have.
through. Yeah,
Don't discount that, man. They
it's like
fired
when
the CERN thing, and things have gotten
Yeah.
awfully weird since then. Okay, just
Yeah,
You know
when
what?
Odin-
Like our planet's at the point where it's like, oh fuck it. Like I welcome the portal that's going to consume and destroy us all. It's like, fuck it. We're done.
whatever. Can it really get worse? Like, come
Yeah.
on.
We've got She-Hulk. That's it. Like, the end times are here, gentlemen. J.K. Fozo said, I was genuinely bummed by this. I like Shelob, always have been fascinated by the giant spiders. This includes Ungoliant.
Mhm.
I was hoping to see Ungoliant versus the Balrogs, but literally the first 4.5 minutes of the first episode dashed that hope. Hopefully Gary is still here and can explain the context of this message. Cheers, crew.
there was a massive like battle at the end of the first age where it's like the Valor came down and just broke the planet, fighting Morgoth, and we saw Balrogs, like everything, dragons, and we saw a dragon killing eagle for like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So I think that's what, like, even I was invested for that. I'm like, oh God, well, maybe we'll get some first age like exposition BS that I can enjoy out of this, and we didn't get any of it, and because they don't have the rights, and I just don't think they care enough. I don't think they care enough. This is purely a corporate product from beginning to end. And we were just talking about bad reboot. We don't even have Jar Jar Abrams working on this. We have his underlings, like his underlings that he wouldn't even allow have a credit on start, because JD Payne and Patrick McKay worked a little bit on Into Darkness, but their work wasn't good enough to get a credit. So they got the credit on Beyond, the little work they did. And apparently they've done a ton of work for him, but they couldn't get the credit. They admitted that in a video I have. And then they have Lindsay Weber, the producer of 10 Cloverfield Lane and Star Trek Beyond, running the entire show. It's what a mystery why this thing sucks. You know, fire everybody with bad reboot on their fucking resume, down to the janitor, the caterer. If you ever work there, you are not allowed to work on anything in Hollywood ever again.
It is such a waste that the Ungoliant aspect of that creation element. It's, you know, this is the origin story. When you see in Rings of Power, you see the trees decay and die.
Yes,
and it says our great foe Morgoth did this. Well, no, that wasn't. Morgoth is one of the Valar. He's one of the people who sort of sings part of the song that creates the world. But he serves as like this Lucifer figure, and he always wants to dominate the world. He wants creation for himself, and he's always denied it. And so he turns evil, so to speak. And so he goes off into Middle Earth, which is all dark at the time. There's no light. And he finds Ungoliant, who is the mother of Shelob. She's one of these dark creatures that's unintentionally created by the discord that he creates. And then he brings her in and he feeds her on the sort of the life essence of all of the world, including the light of the trees. And as she eats the trees of light, which darkens Valinor, she grows and becomes so powerful that she actually outmatches Morgoth himself. And then he has to be rescued by his own Balrogs. But this idea that, you know, your evil intent and your pride can lead to the creation of things more evil than you is a really, really fascinating one. And again, makes that world so much more lovely and deep and rich. And they just got rid of all of it for Morgoth was a bad dude and he didn't like trees much. And that's the end.
That sounds cool as shit compared to what we got.
I know.
Yeah.
I just started off corrupting the Song of Creation and kept corrupting it, you know, and just got in a bad way after that. But that's why it's written as mythology. There's the mythology. You guys all know this, but I'm just going to say it. Mythology was supposed to tell a history, like a real history in a story form, but you're also meant to get a lesson out of it. And this is shit that's passed down and it could have been changed, but for thousands of years. And Tolkien thought that his country had been robbed of that, because it was. And he told it in that way. And by the way, the Silmarillion was, you know, that was Christopher Tolkien. That wasn't J.R.R. Tolkien. that put it out, but it's still great. I love it, but you have to be like an invested Tolkien fan to really dig into that, because it's beautiful, and there's some like kick-ass stuff, and there's some there's beautiful messages in it, beautiful stories, beautiful language. If you're into Tolkien, and they don't understand any of that. They might say that they can sit there and repeat Elvish, they can speak fluid Elvish all they want, which anybody can fucking learn at any time. But after what we've seen, they are not putting in Tolkien's messages. That Peter Jackson clip that's going around, that needs to go around every day. Everybody needs to hear that. I don't want to put my messages in this. I wanted to put Tolkien's messages in this, and we're not seeing that. And we're not seeing the basic stuff that that would have made a fan excited, like the fan you paid for. It's crazy. It's crazy. So it's insane that we're at this part, and they spent $1 billion on this. $1 billion is into this. And it's going to dethrone Game of Thrones season 8 as like the biggest disaster in television history.
Imagine what you could do with $1 billion. Like, imagine how many ways you could advance humanity and help people. And this is what they do with it. Fuck. Stephen Bobo says, "Hail Critical Drinker. Yesterday is the USA release date for Final Fantasy VII, the 7th of September 97. Have you seen the classic look on remake PC mod?" I have not. No, I've seen various HD remasters of the original game, and I've played the remake that they've done so far, which is 2% of the original game. So yeah, I can't wait to buy the other 500 copies that I'm going to have to get to get the whole game. But yeah, I've loved it so far, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of what they do. But yeah, back in the day. Next one is Taker610, who says, "Rings of Power is so good that Amazon needs to ban people from reviewing it and call everyone racist. I love our modern world. Press F's in the chat."
Dude, that fucking settled the no hate watching thing for me.
Yeah.
It's still going on. Like, you can leave a review, but they're not showing. So it's been a little longer than 72 hours. Just saying.
Has to be reviewed, like on YouTube.
Exactly. Yeah. It's because this is the thing. That thing you were reading near the beginning there, Drinker, the thing about we stand against racism and all that stuff. Yeah. I've seen there's a couple of accounts that are like, "See, this is it. This is proof. We can't. It's not even enough to just not watch it. You have to never discuss this thing, not even the existence of it or the fact that you don't want it. You just have to not talk about it ever at all." And I was just like, man, if we actually did that, all that would be left is praise. And that's not that's definitely not the preference, I'd say.
I would just love to be able to produce a piece of art or entertainment or whatever and completely dictate the terms by which other people can engage with it. And basically say, you can't criticize. Yeah, basically, you can't criticize it. You can't dig it in any way. All I want to hear is praise for what I've done. Great. That would be a fantastic world to live in. It must be awesome to be an artist when you don't have to listen to any criticism of what you made.
Right? When we're doing the streams with House of the Dragon, there's legit criticism in the chat, but it's criticism on the show, and I even missed that. I was like,
it's the best
so
format. Yeah. When you, me, and Shad can have even different ideas too, and then we'll clash them, and then usually two of us will adopt the third person's because we're like, okay, actually, that makes the most sense. And then you'll have people in chat being like, "Hey, that's pretty cool. I didn't notice that." Or someone's like, "Wow, you guys praise him way too much. I fucking hate the show." And it's like, that's the environment I was looking for.
Yep.
That's the way it used to be.
Yep. You're overpraising it. It's boring. I'm good with that. I welcome it. I'm sure you guys do too. So it's nice to get it once in a while. There's criticism of Cobra Kai. There's even criticism of Cobra Kai. Season 2 is a little slow, Tyrone.
Yeah.
But after that, it improves. It actually improves, I think. Season 1's still the best. Still absolutely the best.
Okay.
But I think you'll take it. I think you should watch it.
Yeah, I think you'll have fun with it.
I was concerned it was going to be woke, but then when I heard all you say it was so great, I'm like, okay, it's not.
There's elements, but they actually kind of take the piss out of both sides. Like people say about the boys, but that doesn't really exist. They do take the piss out of both sides in it, which is pretty fun.
Okay, I see what you mean. All right.
Unhinged says, "Nothing stupid and whitey from me this week. Just my dollars and a bow to the panel and chat." So thank you very much, my friend. Kevin O'Neill says it could be worse, Drinker. Imagine if they'd made the trilogy in the 2020s. The line of kings has failed. Diverse gender swapped Aragorn. Then maybe it's time for a queen. Yeah, they would absolutely do that. Waylon Bicephus says, I told you that I'm writing a Western. How does this sound? Two gunfighters hired by a widow to solve her husband's murder are pitted against a corrupt landowner, sheriff, and all their hired guns. Sounds all right to me. We need more Westerns in our life.
Yes.
I mean, been a long time.
Westerns are really simple and good, and they're brilliant in their simplicity. So
I think they're pretty flexible as well. You can bring a lot of different scenarios and characters into it.
I freaking love a good Western. I love. Oh yeah.
Samuel the Infamous says, "Sorry about your loss, gents. Best of luck with Charles." Yeah, I mean to be fair, he's not going to be around too long, one way or the other. So even if he's rubbish,
it's I'm sorry, what's his name? Who's after Charles?
William,
the one with the tolerable wife. Okay, yeah.
See, I'd heard rumors that Charles was just going to forgo it, and that it would just pass to William because he was like, "Yeah, I'm too old. There's not much point in me becoming king, so I'll only be doing it for like 10 years, and then I'll probably die anyway." So.
I think someone in response to that made the point that if you, as Englishmen, decide to choose your monarch, it sort of defeats the object of having a monarchy. But
well, it's not so much us choosing them; it's like them choosing to.
them choosing. Well, they did.
Abdicate.
They did change the line of succession a little while ago to make it so that theoretically, at least, a woman could take precedence over him, I think, and claim, which he wasn't very happy about. But I just like that we've entered the banter era of monarchy, where the king can now sort of accept $1 billion cash grabs in Waitrose shopping bags from the family of Osama bin Laden, for example. That's a great era of English history that we've all got to look forward to.
We should be all proud of that.
Mm-hmm.
Michael C says, "Good evening, gentlemen. Hope you're both doing well this evening. Not just both, it's all of us. I think we're doing all right." Terry Butler says, "Hail Drinker, I was wondering if there would be another chance to buy your plushie. I was leaving Armed Services and had a change of address between purchase and receiving the product, and it wasn't forwarded." Ah, shit. So you bought it and it didn't come to you. Well, I'm sorry about that, my friend. And there's going to be another run of Drinker plushies in the next month or so. So watch the space and I'll let you know when they come out. Zagros Ozcan says, "We need more indigenous LGBTQIA plus W trans dwarves of color to stand up against the hegemony of the opposing far-right extremist Elrondist male elves." I think we absolutely do, yeah. Disa was not terrible, like from what I've seen so far. She's been okay.
She was adequate.
Her Scottish accent
keeps saying.
But yeah, the character herself is all right.
Yeah, we don't have to be careful. Not that she was not the worst thing in it. That's kind of the way I put it. But there's so many bad things in it. I mean,
I think one of the things I noticed is she really made the actor for Elrond feel dead, like next to him. Like it would be his line of just, and then it would be her line of, and you're just like, oh shit, person, hello.
He does. He saps the personality out of every scene he's in, including that one. So that's the only scene where there's a really nice exchange between him and Durin, isn't it? And then so they have the conversation about this broken friendship, and it works really well. There's actually some feeling behind it. And then Elrond comes out with this cracker, which is like, where there's light, there is still love, or something. It just makes you cringe to your core.
Yeah.
Stop ruining your scenes. These other characters are quite good. Why like this?
I have a feeling that they took the wrong impression from Lord of the Rings. They're like, all elves are stoic and do not act. They don't have emotions. It's like, dude, watch Elrond's scenes. There's a reason why people like Hugo Weaving as Elrond. He's fucking great. He's not a stone. Like, he doesn't.
Well, he's the master of like understated emotion, isn't it? Like just one little twitch of the mouth, like he can convey a lot of emotion in that moment. But like, it requires a good actor to be able to do that, and good writers.
Elves are flawed, very flawed. There's another. You could still show that with them being ethereal. There's still a way to do that.
Well, I think the flaws become obvious, like just from hubris and believing that you've seen it all, done it all, you know everything, and clearly they don't. And I think that's quite easy to work in while keeping true to what they are. But yeah,
I feel very confident that any defense of this show will die within the next 2 weeks. Very
I'm
confident.
looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Well,
The way
Gary,
things are going, that's the way it looks. I've noticed everything. It's like I don't know how much longer they can defend the fans saying that, look, what you're doing is garbage. You know what I mean? Because it seems most of the fans, that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Looking
we've
forward
all
to the,
seen this before. We've seen the pattern, right? We've been covering from anywhere from 10 years to 5 years. You see the pattern. You can definitely tell when people like something, right? Like you know, even if I don't, that's fine. You know, like I found out when the Batman trailer came out, I found out that I had the unpopular opinion. So what? No problem. But like you get a feel for it. You know, people clearly liked Maverick. Like at the beginning, I never thought it would get this far, but it's crazy.
This is what I mean, like about that Ryan Johnson quote. It's like, yeah, I'm sure the makers of Maverick were like, oh, if only half the people hated this, you know, that would have been better.
You know what they did? I went and saw No Way Home with my kid, that extended version, right? And there's a little thank you in front of it from all
yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Wait, who's it directed at? Is it the fans?
The fans.
Yeah.
Whoa. Like, are you sure Marvel approved that?
No, that was Sony. You know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, Tom Holland thanking the fans.
Yeah.
Remember treating the fans like respect and treating them as like paying customers, which is exactly what they are. That was nice.
Dude, throughout that arcane behind the scenes, every single department, their main concern is how will the fans receive this? We gotta hope we can get this right for the fan. They keep repeating it, and it's just like weird how that can get you some positive results. Crazy.
So simple. It's the simplest thing. Thank you for spending your hard-earned money on our entertainment. It's really hard for some people, though.
Yeah. Kathy Lou says, rather than firing the lot of them as they so richly deserve, Amazon now has their marketing department attacking the fans of Tolkien yet again. Such a tried and true method should work out so well.
It will, won't it?
Shauna Bass says, my heart goes out to the UK folks today. The Queen has been a fixture for me since I was born. As a little girl in America, it meant a lot to see an incredible woman in such a great position. Bless the Queen and her family. Thank you. That's very heartwarming stuff. It's time for Hollywood to end, says Star Trek Day live stream. It's so bad and so cringe. All right, so they've got their own streams going, have they? Are they hosted by Will Wheaton by any chance? Will's got to eat, okay?
Everyone's going to tune in.
Got literally hundreds of people watching live. Duke Earl Solidoge says, I want everyone to know that if you feel happiness over the Queen passing, your cultural anger comes from the fact that your ancestors are bad at war.
Oh, dude, whenever they're like, look at Britain's blood-soaked history, it's like the world's got a blood-soaked history. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's like, you know, history's written by the victors and all that. We just did pretty well for quite a while. Indy G says, pint of lager, please, Mauler.
Oh, yeah, go
hook him up. Peter Frazee says, RIP, I'm American, but this 1/4 Northern Irish. Fair enough. The Randman says, was Rings of Power so bad that it killed the Queen? It might well have been. Maybe she saw the next episode.
Too soon?
Maybe.
Yeah, it's never too soon on YouTube. Hey, Stephen Bobo says, question for Tyrone Magnus. Do you still have beef with grade A under A?
I don't have beef with anybody. Yeah, let me tell you something. That kind of stuff was like early YouTube stuff. You know what I mean? I've had beef with other people earlier in the career where, you know, and like fans will actually kind of stoke that and stir the pot and all. I don't get into none of that. People can say whatever they want to say. It gets ignored and then I move on. You know what I mean?
I think that's absolutely the best way to do it, man. Like,
yep.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, I know there's a lot of people that make a career off of YouTube beef. And I can't do that. It's too much negative energy. I'd rather have a good time, you know.
The man's successful, right there.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Richard Stamets says, "Thank you very much for what you do. You've helped me inspire me to finish my first book. Cheers to all of you." Oh, thank you very much, man.
Cheers.
Zach Snipper says, I'm from America, but my mom is from Fife in Scotland. She's quite beside herself with grief. There you go. Thanks, man. Rafi Sanders says, I'm writing my first book about two brothers reconnecting after fighting on different sides of a war. Their mother is trying to get them to rekindle their relationship, which was estranged after the conflict. Sounds all right to me. Best of luck with that, man. Zach Nippert says, probably in the minority, but I like Rings of Power. Not as great as Lord of the Rings, but is better than the last couple of seasons of Thrones and any crap that Disney's pumping out. I mean, that's a low benchmark, to be fair, man. I don't think that gets you into good territory.
Is it better than season 7 and 8 of Thrones?
No.
I would say it's better than season 8 of Thrones, because I think season 8 of Thrones is possibly one of the worst things that's ever happened outside of fucking MOM, but that's just me.
Have you seen have you seen She-Hulk?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes.
That's got to be the worst.
Wait till the series finishes, because like at least season 8, like the first episode, with nothing happened. It was boring, but it wasn't bad, right? It was just all set up.
Well, because I would just go this far, right? Like we're totally on board with the whole, like, yeah, you like it. That's totally great. But I would be curious if they were in the call right now. I'd be like, what did you like about it? What were you enjoying? I'd love to know what character dynamic you thought was interesting, or what like, or was it just the fact that it just felt like a fantasy world that was realized with money? And if that's the case, that's fine. That's fine. Yep. We all love a bit of escapism. Because that was one of the things I came away baffled by when I finished the first 2 episodes. I think I said it to Fringy. I was like, what are they going to pull from this? What is to like writing wise? God, there's so little in here.
Drinker, I think somebody was just mentioning this. Sorry to this is like off topic, but I searched it on the Star Trek YouTube channel. Their live stream for Star Trek Day just ended an hour ago. It has 6,200 views.
Oh God.
Oh.
Freaking
Nobody's
Star
around
Trek
anymore.
That's brutal.
And how many of that was staff?
This is it. No one gives a fuck.
Oh,
no one gives a fuck about it anymore.
Ouch.
It is just tragic to think that we might actually get to that stage with something like The Lord of the Rings as well. Yes. I mean, the comparison with season 8 of Game of Thrones, I think it depends on sort of your prior investment. Game of Thrones set its own bar incredibly high and then missed it. It didn't just miss its own bar, of course, it missed basic level of competence. But a lot of the pain was because of all the good work it had done. Whereas with Rings of Power, it's not done any good work yet. It's not fallen below a bar it's set for itself. It's fallen below a bar that was set way before it came around. And maybe it's because I'm a bigger Tolkien fan than I am a George R.R. Martin fan, but I think I would say that just because of the damage it does and the fact that it's not even tried to adhere to basic points of lore continuity and the fact it's so unremittingly awful, I would probably have to say Rings of Power is worse than season 8. At least it's damaging me more personally.
There you go. And they bought the bar. So the bar
they bought the bar.
Purchased it and didn't reach it. So
yeah, I will say, what a daunting task, right? That you're dealing with a beloved book, this cultural touchstone that's incredibly important, foundational, inspirational, all the things ever. Then you got the movie adaptations that are just well remembered and industry-wise, like incredible films that everyone loves. It's like, and now it's on you to make the next Lord of the Rings thing. Off you go, and they just literally like the race starts, they go, and he just shoots himself in the head and falls. Nice.
I tell you this, guys, I've been listening to you talk about this, and it's like there's this wonder of why are these decisions made this way, and how could they drop the ball this many times on so many IPs. But I had a chance to talk to a few different people that have worked on different projects in Hollywood. And from what I get from them, if you guys are at all corporate, have ever worked for a big corporation, you'll realize that this huge machine has so many problems. And you're wondering, how the hell are you a $1 billion or $1 trillion business and there's this many holes, chinks in your armor? Like, how can you run this badly? And they've communicated to me that it's very similar. One in particular said, it's amateur hour. You wouldn't believe it when you walk in these doors. So maybe it's like any other job. if you're working for a big business, realize that a lot of these Hollywood companies run just as poorly in spite of being that big.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's that whole like hierarchy of people that rise to their position of incompetence, where it's like they've gotten to that point where it's like they're not smart enough to progress any further, but they're just barely competent enough to do the job that they do. So like spread that out over an entire massive company, and you've just got a bunch of like barely competent idiots doing whatever job that they're doing. That's how you end up with shows like we get, you know.
Yeah.
But it's
it's
sad
twice
that
to think
that's
as well, though, isn't it? Because there's no, I mean, everyone who gets to the top comes again from the same background, but they filter out any applicants who might want to aspire to rise up the level of a big corporation as well. So the group of people who ends up at the top of any big company, which is bigger companies are quite often the most small-minded places in the world, because they filter out anyone who might tell them that they're doing something wrong, and there's no one there to actually ask them basic questions. I wish I could have been in the writer's room for Rings of Power when they have Gil Galad explain, I'm sending Galadriel away just in case she might find Sauron, and we don't want that to happen. Just one question. Why? Why is that not a good thing? But no one there is going to ask those questions, because they filter out people who want to get to the top, who actually have an ounce of creative ability or independent thought. So they create these bubbles. This is why like monopoly companies always collapse of their own will. They lose track of what the consumer wants. They have no input from elsewhere, no viewpoint diversity at all, and so they collapse under the weight of their own incompetence in the end. But it's just we're living through this horrible period where we have a huge number of monopolies that are in the decaying stages, and it will take a few more years for them to actually collapse, but eventually it will happen.
Yeah, I think the problem being that they've made so much money in the process that they can sustain their incompetence for longer than they should be able to.
Mm-hmm.
And so that process that would normally happen really quickly is like this protracted, like agonizing death of like all these like great franchises that were built up by like actual competent, good people.
It's funny you said that about Gil Galad, because like as someone who's not familiar enough with his stuff, I only know references to his name thanks to like I think in like the Third Age, one of the moves your characters had is Gil Galad's Rampage or something.
Yes.
So it's like I recognize the name, but the thing is, so that's enough for me to realize like pretty sure he's a good guy. However, dare I be pretentious for 1 second, cinematic language, having him say like, we wouldn't want her to go looking for evil. She might encourage it. I thought that was such a bullshit statement that makes no sense at all. I was like, so is he like evil? And I don't think that's what they're going for.
No. But it made him look incompetent. High King Gil-galad, one of the characters, every Tolkien fan's like, can't wait to see this one. And he was like, yeah, I'm totally sent her away. She was a little thorn in my side.
Because he's like one of the oldest elves. He's in charge. He's like the king of the majority of them for a large period. He's respected by virtually everyone. He's the guy who eventually goes on to form the last alliance of elves and men to fight against Sauron, which is the battle you see at the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring. So this is like one of the most hyper competent characters you can possibly imagine. They've turned him into the equivalent of Denethor from Return of the King, who's just
notice that he can't even deliver like a competent speech. He has to get Elrond to write it for him.
Oh my god! And that metaphor, it's like
cringy,
getting the skin off a carcass with the falling rain, and I was still trying to figure out what the hell that was.
That in my review. I mean, I'll put it in the next one. Yeah, it was bad.
Because no leader is great. No person is ever born into like destiny or like authority or anything like that. It's all just fake. That's the message they're trying to put across to you here. Like there's always someone else behind them manipulating, like showing them how to do things. Okay. Deconstruction. Got to deconstruct everything.
Mm-hmm.
Gary, I know that you're kind of short on time, man, and you've done fantastic to be able to join us for as long as you did, because I know you were up against it tonight. But I appreciate you coming on, man.
I appreciate you inviting me. No one says no to the drinker. Okay.
Well, plenty of women have.
Yeah.
Not Tatiana.
She's got no option.
Oh my god.
Yeah. No, but thank you for coming on, man. Like it was great to join with you guys on the Real BBC the other night and do a bit more ranting about this show. And I will be on Friday Night Tights fairly soon as well. So
yes, you will. So thanks for coming on, and anytime you can give is great. And it was a pleasure talking to all you guys. The little platoon, check out this channel. Sounds awesome.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you. And the great Tyrone. It was great talking to you. I haven't seen you since do I even want to mention the last live stream we were on together? It was before a certain director of a movie came on.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
That was a while back. It's all water.
Good times.
Yeah.
But hey, it was great talking to you, man. And
great talking to you too. I've been watching you for a long time, man.
Thanks, man.
I've noticed your rise. Trust
That's
me.
an honor. And let us know what you think of Cobra Kai. Dying to know. Dying to know.
I'm gonna, because I'm doing a lot of shows right now, but now I'm going to add it because I got all you guys' approval. So I believe
you will not regret it, sir. You will have a blast with it, guaranteed.
All right,
Drinker Baller, love you guys. Talk to you soon. Thanks, chat. You're brilliant. Have a good one.
Sunday, right? See you Sunday.
See you Sunday.
All right, yes.
Ciao.
Thank you, man.
Ciao.
We'll do a couple more super chats and then probably wrap it up as well because I know we've been going for a little while here. So yeah, I won't do too many more. Yeah, John Orchard, who says, "Don't rocks have two sides? One side looks up and the other side looks down." I totally don't get the metaphor they were going for.
Dude, they lost me. I was gonna give it to them. Like the whole "it looks down, the ship doesn't." I was like, fine, I'll let you have that. What's next? And then he says, "But the darkness still tries to drag down the ship." And I was like, wait, but that's just unfair then. The Rock can't do anything about that. If the Rock's getting dragged down, like, what's the Rock
Why are you
gonna
victimizing Rock so much?
Poor Rock. He wasn't even looking down. He was just getting dragged down. Oh, terrible.
Fucking idiotic. Like,
completely lost on that.
But it's purely done for effect. Like, someone sat down with the writer and gave them the brief, sound profound. And that was their really, really labored attempt at sounding like they were conveying something meaningful. Even though it contradicts the law as established in the previous sentence of the voiceover, there was a time when there was no sun, but there is also a light in the sky that doesn't exist. And then there's the later one as well, where Sauron's orcs spread all over the world, the evil is everywhere, and then the next sentence is, "We searched for Sauron for years and we couldn't find him, and we hadn't seen any orcs." And it's just this huge gap in between these two sentences. The first one is just contradictory, and the second one is just like a massive gap in between the world building that they couldn't think to include in the voiceover. Everything about this is just, it's purely designed for its most superficial effect, and none of it makes any sense. It's just like performative profundity. It's maddening stuff.
Yeah. Dashio Milner says, "Tyrone, I've been waiting for you to join this stream for so long."
I was so, you guys don't know, I was supposed to join like 2 other times, but I couldn't make it, man. So
yeah,
finally
made it happen. Claudia Rogajan says, "Why are you dressed like an office worker?" I'm in mourning. I had to hunt to try and find my black tie because the Queen died. I was like, I'm going to show my respects. I couldn't find a suit jacket in the time I had, so this is the best I could do. Sorry. Jake Skywalker says, "What do you think of the end of the streaming wars will look like? Who will be the winners and losers?" I think Amazon Prime are going to be the winners.
So I would like Disney Plus, because they just machine gun out content right now with their IPs.
Maybe. Yeah.
I'm saying Amazon because I think not so much the content that they produce will win, but I think the fact that they've got a second revenue stream from just Amazon
deliveries. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Is there room enough for both, do you reckon? That'll just be the standard, that both of them exist?
Yeah, I think ultimately they'll push Netflix out of the market.
Could be, yeah.
Eventually. And you'll get them. They'll be all that's left.
Whoever wins.
There's this weird intermediate stage, though, isn't there? Because a lot of the slightly smaller streaming services, and Netflix being the big outstanding one, are thinking about introducing, say, advertisements and the like, essentially recreating the network TV model, but with an additional subscription fee as well. And I kind of any of the subscription services that are thinking about introducing adverts will probably be the first to go, just because they're recreating the worst features of the thing they said they were better than to begin with. And the only companies that won't do that are the ones that can afford to splurge all of this cash on massive productions. So that would leave Disney and Amazon leading the way, and maybe Netflix or an equivalent. But I can't see something like Paramount Plus going for all that long. They're already merging with.
Yeah, they're on the way out. Like you say, like the ones that are going to have to go to the advertising model first are going to be the ones with the least amount of revenue because they've got the least content to entice people in which case, like, they're going to be even more likely to cancel as a result of that. So yeah, it's almost like hastening their own demise, I guess.
Someone in chat said maybe we'll get Rippaverse Plus by then. You can compete. Come out on top.
Hopefully, it does better than CNN Plus. Chili Papaya says, if the show makes Amazon lose so much money, which I think it will, do you guys think Amazon might abandon the woke nonsense, or will they double down?
God,
That's a
I
pretty
hope
good
so.
question. We were talking about direction there.
Didn't they say they'll just abandon making streaming shows in general, or at least original ones?
I think that's what they're implying. I don't know if they'll actually do that, because they've produced other ones that I think have been profitable. Like the Terminal listed pretty well.
Yeah.
My
No mess.
completely misinformed, guess would be that if this is a massive success, they will eventually look to try and separate off Amazon Prime, the streaming service, from Amazon Prime, the delivery service, and then sort of double the revenue stream if this is successful. And if they don't get the success they want, they will either keep them packaged or they will just massively row back on the streaming. That's the only. It's weird because it is a tied model. It's very hard to see what the methodology is behind it. My guess would be that if it's so successful, they will split the two services, so you have to pay for both. That would be. I can't think why they would do it a different way.
Shorty Short says, I love how Liv Tyler deepened her voice for Lord of the Rings. I didn't know that, actually. Is that true?
Really?
I mean, maybe, but I've seen her in a couple of other things, and I don't remember thinking like, "Whoa, she sounds so different in Lord of the Rings." So
that's gonna make me go watch like Incredible Hulk or whatever, and then go. Wow.
Salvatore Pisano says, Critical Drinker and Little Platoon is a fucking dream team. You guys should definitely do content together more often. Podcast material. There we go. We'll have to get you back on.
Thank you very much.
Derek says, hey gang, just watching this all the way from South Africa. Wondering if Mauler knows that Tolkien loved Welsh language and called it the senior language of the men of Britain. Thanks.
Hey.
Keep up the good.
If you can speak Welsh, you can speak a lot of Elvish.
Oh, shit. Well, I can't speak lots of Welsh, so.
Samuka, so this is kind of for the whole panel, says, I was wondering where you guys get your film footage and audio from. You see, I want to do a video similar to yours, and I was looking for ideas. Cheers. So, yeah, how do we get our footage? I mean, you can download it from YouTube pretty easily.
That's honestly the best piece of advice. People don't realize how much is on YouTube. To be honest with you, I get surprised how much is on YouTube. I don't know how they get away with it, but I guess it's like a form of promotion or something. I don't know. But
well,
yeah, that is.
When you see like entire scenes that have been lifted from movies, like they will be there, but like the ad revenue is probably going to the studio that made it originally. They just wouldn't have blocked it.
I never understand that though, because like the copyright issues I had with my MLM video, it'd be like the whole video is clean except for this part where you've played too long of a Doctor Strange scene blocked visually, like no one can see it, not even monetized. I was like, oh, because Disney usually monetize it for themselves, I thought, but at that point it makes me wonder just how does it work. I wonder exactly.
Yeah, it's confusing.
You never quite know. You roll the dice every time you upload something. Maybe it'll be okay, maybe it won't. I mean, to be fair, as much as we shit on Disney and Marvel and stuff, like most of the time they're really forgiving about copyright stuff.
Yeah. They are. They're the most forgiving.
By far. Like Paramount and Warner Brothers are total assholes. Like
Universal.
Universal. Yeah.
I fucking hate Universal.
Yeah, Sony's usually cool for the most part, not every time, but yeah. If you make a living talking about Marvel, they do you a solid because they don't claim it.
Bradman says, why is Galadriel on a mission of vengeance when elves can be reincarnated? Shouldn't she just wait for her brother to come back? And why does Sadak Burrows look, sound, act, and have the same hair as Rafiki from The Lion King? I do not. Oh God, Lenny Henry though. Fucking hell, he was a weird choice for that role.
But he's one of those who's gone big on the whole anti-racist line. So for the review I'm doing, I've dug out the clip of him being incredibly racist and playing a Chinaman. I just think, would he have been as forgiving of somebody else as he is expecting people to be forgiving of him, and as people apparently are forgiving of him?
I mean, he was just a pretty generic stand-up comedian here in the UK for like my life, basically, and he was fine. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's like he's gotten bitten by the bug, and he's just this is how he makes money now. And I guess if you're getting roles on shows like this, you'll say whatever the studio commands you to say, but man, it's disappointing to see what's become of him. MJuck84 says, thanks lads for doing the show. Been a tough day and I needed a show like this to raise my spirits. Well, and then we started with the Queen's dead. Emotion and alcohol together. Raise one for the Queen, raise one for the Fellowship. Keep calm and carry on. Well, that's pretty good advice for anyone. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we've been going for like 3 hours or something, pretty close to that now. And yeah, we've probably done enough super chats for now. I would say that we can catch up on them probably the next time we do this. But I don't know. What do you guys think? You want to call it a day? Finish up there. Particularly for us guys in the UK, it's getting a bit later as well. So just kind of conscious of that.
Midnight.
The witching hour.
Yes.
So you're 5 hours ahead?
Yeah, if you're on the East Coast, we're 5 hours ahead.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, it's late for you. It's really late. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's listen, you know, we've had a hell of an audience tonight. I think we had about 14,000 people watching us at peak, and it's been pretty fucking cool. Yeah, and I want to say thanks to all you guys. Thank you for everyone that's done the super chats, that's been so generous with them. Thank you for the guests that have come in. Little Platoon, Tyrone, and Gary. Like you guys have all been awesome, and it's been great to have you on. Particularly you two, you're first timers on the open bar as well, so it's been great to do this.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And for everyone that's watching this, the links to everyone's channels are in the description. So please do give them a follow because these guys are all doing awesome work. And it's great to see their channels grow. I mean, Tyrone, you're fucking huge already. Like you've got way more subscribers than I do. But, you know, if people haven't subscribed to you already, then please do give them a follow as well. And Little Platoon, he's an absolute up-and-comer. He's going to be at 100K before you know it, and he absolutely deserves all of it because he produces fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good I don't have my camera on because I'm blushing, but thank you.
But yeah, for everyone else that's joined us, thank you very much. And I guess that's all we've got for today. So go away now.
Bye-bye.